Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 30th day of July 2025. And welcome to our show. This morning, we're going to be starting out with Liberty Essentials with Ralph and Karen, and we're going to bring Greg in this morning too, because he's on at 10 o'clock. And Bill proved this morning or lived out his life this morning with very good priorities. His brother's house had a fire in it, and him with 5 kids. He's going to help his family and try to help his brother out this morning, which I think is absolutely wonderful. We all really need to take a check of our lives once in a while and prioritize where we're supposed to be. So at any rate, I'm going to bring on my buddies. And then at 10 o'clock, it's I think probably everybody's going to stay on this morning. Maybe Ralph will bow out, but we're just going to keep going. So morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, we got a lot to talk about today.
There's always a lot to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead and get started. All of your microphones are a little soft this morning, so make sure you're close to the camera. So there we go. So anyhow, what we decided this morning that with Bill kind of being wrapped up a lot, that we are going to probably look at things from the founding fathers' perspectives. Now I've got this book, and this is a hard book to find. It's out of print. I think I spent like $135 on this little baby that's pretty well home published is what it looks like. Okay. Which sometimes some of the best stuff that we can find is either archived or home published. And then we also have this series right here, Liberating Planet Earth. And I want to give you the background on this. I've been trying to collect these books, the whole series of these books. It's online. I posted before the link to the access to this online. You don't have to have a copy of this or buy this. I've had to find these all over the place in used bookstores. Okay, it's not something that I've been able to find that you can find them in different places. This is some of the best writing I've seen on from an ethical standpoint, how to evaluate ethics in our decisions in everyday life, and what the basis of this is, and using the Bible as the standard of what we're supposed to do. And so I wanted to let's hear about what's going on with your days first of all, and then let's go down this track, because everybody knows right now this has been an epic week for beating up on bad guys. And we're doing it, Greg and his group is doing it through notices. And I'm kind of taking a full frontal attack on everything and using the weapons that they've been using against them, like lawfare, and doing it in a way that shocks them, because this is the language they speak. They don't speak the same language that, say, some of us who have been studying the lawful processes speak. They only know statutory law. They only know that sort of thing. So that's kind of why I'm going down this path, because no matter which way you cut the cake on this, they lose. You can pick up their own weapons and use them against them, and then you can have other people flanking from the other side and getting the job done with the way it's truly supposed to be done, without tearing it down with their own weapons. And so let's go ahead and start talking here a minute. I got to get a few things running. I was late because I was all excited about this whole physics study I'm in. And it's really phenomenal. And I think this all ties in together in ways you can't even imagine. So go ahead and start, Karen.
Well, what was going on with my day?
Yeah, just what's going on with your day and your mind. And on the subjects that we're talking about here, I guess. How's that? That like narrows the focus just a little bit.
Well, this morning in my garden, I'm very irritated because yesterday I found a cane borer in one of my hydrangeas, and
What?
I lost a portion of my hydrangea bush. 9 blooms, and it's a little plant, so I wasn't happy about it. It'll be okay. But there was a cane borer in it. Do you know what a cane borer is?
I do not.
Okay, it's like a carpenter ant kind of thing, and it gets down into your canes on hydrangeas or roses. And this morning, I found the same bush that I treated yesterday had another one that I didn't know about that was hiding underneath those tight leaves. And the rose bush next to it, my new rose bush, had a cane borer, and it went almost all the way to, well, it did probably get to the trunk of the bush. What it does is it gets into anywhere where you've cut a branch, it drills a hole down into it, and it lays some eggs, and it makes more baby cane borers. But it chews down into it, and if it gets to the trunk of your plant, it can kill the entire plant if you don't. Otherwise, you might have to chop it down or whatever. So as I'm thinking about, well, what you do is you have to cut the portion of the plant because it's gotten into the pith. You have to cut whatever it has got to, and I found the bug in one of them, so the bug is not going to make any more cane borer babies. And then you have to seal it. And since I just ordered some Bonide, Bonide, it's one brand name of plant products. I ordered a sealant. It's called a plant sealant or a tree sealant that you can put on anything when you cut branches or you get wounds on something, and it's like a tar. Well, because I didn't have any, I've been using a bright pink nail polish, which I never wear, so that's why I've had it, so I can see exactly where it's at, and I seal it with that, so it can't get down any further when I get to the clean part of the plant. So I hope, because I found the bug in the rose bush too, right next to the trunk. And so I hope, since I got the bug, when I sealed it, I saved my rose bush. Otherwise, I just planted it this year. It produced some pretty pink climbing roses. So when you were talking about the subject for this morning and then encouraging me to stay on topic, I was thinking about how a cane borer is just like the infiltrators in our country.
Think about the name. I mean, the name is like Cain and Abel. Like if you go to the word soups kind of stuff, it's like it's like a cannibalistic. Which I thought was really interesting. You connect the words, Cain and Abel, and put them together, and it looks like cannibal to me. And so, it's kind of an interesting little word salad.
Well, I tell you what, I've seen it on 3 of my bushes now, and I like my hydrangeas a lot. I just started them last year. This is not a small thing to me. When something comes after my bushes, you better look out, little cane borers.
Mama bear comes out, right?
Yes, sir. So and what you do, how you find them. So anybody with hydrangeas has never heard of this before. You gotta water your plants by hand from time to time, because that's what I've been doing. And you look for the telltale sign of little white flecks of wood that they've chewed. It's kind of like, beavers are more obvious. They leave a big trail of wood next to the tree that they're chewing on. The same concept, but it's small, so it looks like a little white powder. It'll fall on the leaves, it'll fall at the base of the plant, and that's how I found it with both of those things. The rose bush just nearby, like 2 feet away. So you have to keep an eye on your bushes, and anytime you prune it, seal it, because it's those branches. And I sealed every branch on every hydrangea after I found out that this was a thing, because after the first time I found one, I'm like, well, I don't want this on any of my other bushes. So I went around with my pink nail polish. And so anyway, so the point is, you have to constantly look and look and look and look, because you may miss something. And when there's somebody coming after you, or your organization, like the Constitution Party, what did you do when you first were looking into that? Well, you better clear out the cane borers, because I'm not starting into something that's going to die from underneath. You have to make sure that your foundation is clear of something that's going to root into it and destroy it from the inside. And it's a very small thing. It might be that one little person that you don't know about. And it's just like anything else in life. You have to be aware. Like I was pointing out with the Traverse City thing. There's a man walking his wife in a wheelchair up to the store, completely unaware of what was going on. Have an awareness about you all the time, and you can catch cane borers before they destroy what you're trying to do.
And that's a really good point. It's like when we started pointing out, and I guess I'm getting pretty well hammered with the tax by Axe My Tax right now. Somebody from our we had a meeting last night for the Constitution Party, and of course all the people that are headline patriots are and following, being told what to think. Okay, they're being told what to think instead of getting in there. Have we not learned that the news does that same tactic, but so do people in organizations. They tell people how to think instead of providing the facts, giving you something, answering your questions. When someone refuses to meet with you or answer your questions, or at least hear what you have to say, even if they don't understand or know everything, we can't expect people to know everything. But if they don't pick up the phone, if they don't answer questions, my first thing that I go to in critical thinking is, what are they hiding? And now they got a problem, because now I'm digging for what they're hiding and going to expose it to the light. And I'm going to say all of these proposals have done exactly opposite of what they said they were going to do. And the reason being, the petition language is being created by the Board of Canvassers in conjunction with the Bureau of Elections, who have been cheating their ever-living tail off. They are masters of deception. And so if you want to hide something, you put it in a headline, and most people will not do their due diligence to look down to the fine print at the bottom of the page. And point here to that you have to say, when you get, if you want to know the cheater's version on how to sniff out a fake, go and read the entire petition language and start with about 2 sentences in from the end. Don't read it from the top. That's what they're expecting you to do. They want to control what you're seeing. So they're crafting these documents so that you start at the top, because you're trying to get everything. By the time you get done with all of their nonsense at the bottom, you're probably going to have a diminishing return of value as you go down in what you're able to absorb. If you read the conclusion, like when I did this report that I put out here, that's my second reversion, just a minute, that I put out in front of the township this week and almost got arrested, which was really a lot of fun. And if you went forward to the conclusion that I did at the end and read the conclusion, you're going to have an overview. It's like seeing a timeline to history. It's giving you a broad brushstroke on the entirety of what's contained therein. Okay.
Yep.
Then go back and read the first sentence. This is a speed reading technique, and it's also in a memory technique. Okay. I've got a really good memory. Okay. But if you want to go through a book like this, and or this one, you go through, you read the conclusion, the title, the heading, then maybe, skip through a few things and then read the last sentence in the chapter that summarizes it. And you're going to get the overall feel for what you're reading. And then go back and then read it through, and you're already going to have the major components, and then you'll pick out the fine point details. But in the petition, go to the end paragraph or two, and read them first, and then go back and reread it. And that will help you be able to decipher what's really going on there.
At least, having the summary of a bill be completely different than the actual content of the bill is only a new thing, and has never happened before in the history of anything in politics.
Right. Yeah. Like every freaking thing they do, these people are parasites, and they're like the cane borer, and this goes back to the nuclear physics study I'm doing right now, which is just absolutely insane how this ties into explaining things in a, it's like Ralph and I had a discussion this morning on this too. It explains why uh, nuclear physics exists, it's trying to explain and really explain away God. And what it does is it proves he exists and exactly how we need to turn to him and turn everything over to him and stop trying to control things because we can't. And how it drives most people who get into the profession, they generally either turn into and convert to Christianity or they go insane. So
yeah, there's actually an incredibly high proportion of nuclear physicists that are Christians for that reason, because the closer you look at things and the smaller scales you look at things, the less things make sense if you try and explain them with our human understanding.
in the lens of this world.
Right. Same thing with astrophysics. The further you start looking out into the universe, the less sense things make.
Yep. So what else is on your mind this morning, Ralph?
Oh, I just was thinking, this is another complete and total side tangent based on what Karen was saying, but the many uses of obnoxious colored nail polish. I used to volunteer at the library fixing the old tape-based talking book machines for the blind, and we had a selection of obnoxious nail polish colors that we would use to both lock screws in place after we adjusted stuff, and we would rotate through the different colors so we'd know which ones we had adjusted today once we got them in place. So everyone should have some obnoxious nail polish colors, not necessarily for nails.
Is that part of the strategy for prepping, survivor prepping?
Yes.
Put it in your go bag.
No, it's just really useful as a general purpose thing for regular life.
Yes,
Oh,
I agree.
That's so funny.
But yeah, like you said, with the science proving the existence of God, in that everything that we do, the closer we look at it, if you stay at the obvious levels of human scales of especially physics and mathematics, it makes perfect sense and it's easy to explain. And then you start digging into it a little further and you realize, well, that's odd. Wonder why that works that way. And then you start looking at it further and it's like, gravity doesn't make sense. And that's a key to our understanding of an awful lot of other physics. And then you start trying to figure out gravity and, well, that's weird. That doesn't even make sense, even if we have a Higgs boson. And then you start looking into Higgs bosons and realize, well, I guess I'm not even sure those exist. And, you go down these rabbit trails of, well, that doesn't make sense. And then you go further, it doesn't make more sense than it did before,
Well, but what is really interesting is how light travels everywhere and it doesn't have the same material properties as physical matter, which is kind of interesting.
How come it is that light is massless, but it's still bent by gravity? There's all of this stuff that's like, it does not make sense unless you start looking into like the weak nuclear force and dark matter and all of this stuff that you cannot really explain without the creational power of God holding everything together and binding everything and actually, like actively holding everything together constantly.
Yeah, so this could be like a 5-hour discussion here. So we'll move on. We're going to get really bored with it. All of a sudden, we're going to go to full-on Nerdville here, and everybody will be like, "Yeah, you talked about going insane by going into nuclear physics. Guess what? You guys already hit the post."
Well, physics has solved absolutely everything except for gravity, time, the ability for matter to exist. All of that kind of stuff. It solved everything except for all of the major things.
That doesn't solve. All right, Greg, what's on your mind this morning?
Wow.
He's like, how do I compete?
Go in a completely different direction, and mine's going to be very boring compared to gardening, which I get to, and which is I've gone down those rabbit holes, and it's way above my pay grade. So I stick to what I know, which is basically finance and the Constitution. And I've spent a lot of time looking at the amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 16th, and and preparing for our interesting case, which we've got a hearing tomorrow in Indiana. So we've been preparing for that for the last week. And we have had some positive progress, but especially when the district attorney finally addressed my friend as sui juris. So a lot less boring than what you guys were just talking about.
So I got to show you something here that happens when you have a garden. It is you cannot avoid this when you have a garden. And this is called zucchini time. Okay. This is a huge,
wow.
This is like a huge zucchini. So this morning we had a couple of them that got away from us and we didn't pick them small and didn't realize they were there hiding. And so this is what you do when you have a garden. And all the zucchinis germinate. You try to figure out how to stuff them. You try to figure out how to make zucchini bread out of them. You try to give them to your neighbors. You grill them. And so there you go. There's your throwing a zucchini.
That's wonderful.
You can do zucchini. Anyone can do zucchini.
Hey, we've got just over a week until National Sneak Some Zucchini Onto Your Neighbor's Porch Day on August 8th.
Yeah, we're just about there, guys, just so you know.
Where did that come from? Is that another Hallmark special?
No, this is like what everybody in rural areas, it is part of our life. It is like the invasion of the zucchinis, okay? If you plant one plant, it is more than what your entire family can eat because they produce so much. And most of us will say, yeah, well, I've always planted like 4 plants, right? So now you start picking them and you've got wheelbarrows full of zucchini. So you try to bless your neighbors with them who also have 4 plants and sneak them onto their porches so you don't have to deal with these things and it becomes a gotcha. So
interesting.
Stupid farm humor, but it is what it is. All right. So let's how much do you guys know about the Mayflower Compact?
We've actually read it in one of our groups. So that was probably a couple months back with a woman every Wednesday that does history and tradition. So we go back to compacts and things that were done.
Who is that reads it from your group?
Her name is Catherine. She goes by Kitty. She's out of Virginia. She's incredibly knowledgeable. And
I talked to her this morning. She called me.
Yeah, every Wednesday she does a Spaces, and you can go back and listen to some of them. The most recent one she did was really on a case, the last 2 or 3, but we've gone through some incredible history with her, and we've known her obviously for quite some time. So she's a wonderful source, and it's great to listen to those. And even if you can't make it Wednesday evenings, you can listen to them after that, which is what I do a lot, because I can listen to them a little bit faster. And
where do you find them, Greg?
On Spaces, on X.
On X, okay.
So if you follow her on X, you can go and get her past Spaces. Unfortunately, they did terminate her account, so she lost some of her past Spaces. But she's rebuilding now, and
I've asked her to come on BNN.
She's wonderful. Wonderful.
That's great because we've got everything archived, and we've got them archived in lots of different places and regions and such. So if anybody is on here, besides that we're on the blockchain, it cannot be taken down. Okay. So this book, we're going to just read this right here a minute, just to go over, because I think a lot of people have not even heard most of this, and comment as you wish. The Mayflower Compact was the first foundation for the written law in the New World. It was signed by 41 of the ship's 102 passengers. 37 of those making this covenant were members of the separatists fleeing religious persecution in Europe. I think what really comes to mind is how much every one of the people that came over here based their travel to the New World based on religious principles. And that would be to read or think anything else, honestly, is to separate ourselves from the original intention of the founding fathers. Do you agree?
Yeah, the separation of church and state, came
It's a hoax.
about too, because, well, you had a state-imposed
Religion.
religion, not even just a religion, but even the specific practices of how they were supposed to do things were state-imposed. And so many of the people that came here disagreed with that as the biblical principles and as basically being heresy. And so the separation of church and state is not necessarily that the state needs to, quash religion like they seem to be trying to do now. It's that they're not supposed to interfere with your ability to practice it according to your, and your ability to interpret the Bible how you want.
And many people don't remember, but we had the King James Version of the Bible in our schools, in our public schools, up until 1963. So it effectively occurred the same year that Michigan changed its constitution. But if you go back in history, I mean, our kids learned from the Bible, no matter what denomination you were, because that's where our God-given rights come from in our Constitution. So,
and it also gets rid of the separation of decisions being made upon an ethical, moral basis.
amen.
And also which only includes really life comes down to, do you worship God, which God is light, or do you worship the material world? You worship the material world, you're going to try to control your surroundings all the time. You become your own God at that point in time. You worship God, it's like you're just you're here to be helpful and let God's will be done, because this is so temporary. We're not going to.
Can I link that? Can I link that to what has happened in our history now over the last 250 years in law?
Yes, please. Let's do that, and then we can always pick up here. I think that this is. I think that honestly, just having honest discussions. We all got on here and talked about less than 10 minutes before the show started this morning. And this is what I try to do with every interview. Most of the time, I don't know. I've never talked to the people that have come on here unless they've been on a couple of times. We just get on, God take the wheel, and see how it goes, because it's authentic. It's not scripted. So go ahead. This is absolutely unscripted. So go ahead.
So this past week in Washington, there was an AI conference. Trump spoke, and many of the leaders around the world spoke about many different things. But the key is, it kind of led me to understanding, and I've understood this before, but the United States Constitutions, and all 51 of them, as well as the Supreme Court of the United States, the Supreme Court adjudicates many different laws in this country. And when I did a search on ChatGPT for AI, and I do this frequently, and I'm trying to train ChatGPT and Gemini and the others so that it begins to know the real law. But the Supreme Court adjudicates six different laws, and they've identified 6 different laws on ChatGPT, but yet the Supreme Court never has to reveal what they're adjudicating and what law, and therefore people have convoluted what our rights are in these compacts, these social compacts that were created by we the people, and follow the law of the land. And when the Supreme Court adjudicates a case that's statutory law and not common law, which is what affects us as we the people, it's confusing for everyone. They don't understand whether the Supreme Court is adjudicating just for the federal zone, or whether it's for, the states, and who it really affects. So we sit here and look, and when they adjudicated Roe versus Wade, for instance, and you go back, they never said in that decision what law they were using. But now in history, you can go back and look at it and see which two jurisdictions and what laws they were using. So we have to become aware of our status and our standing and all these different things, the difference between these Article 3 courts and Article 1 courts, and understanding these social compacts. And it goes back to learning in the schools from the Bible first, and then relating that to the Constitution. So you understand where our rights have come from. And then you understand how I need to go into a courtroom and present my case so that I can win, not in a statutory manner. Statutes and codes do not apply to we the people unless you let them. That's the only way they apply to us.
I got to show you something. So I thought you'd be proud of this, because I like live in a moat of books here. And that's one you quote.
Can you show that one again?
Yeah, it's the one that you quote a lot.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yes.
Let's see. Here, let me see if everybody can see this. Ta-da. I got to see which one. Oh, here we go. I've got a few tools here.
I like your tools. Yes.
Yes. So
and by the way, in 2019, I don't know if I've mentioned this book on your show before, but he also wrote another book. He wrote a book called A Republic, If You Can Keep It. That was the first book he wrote when he was appointed to the Supreme Court of the U.S. Go back and listen to that one now, because many of the things he talks about is jurisdiction and status and sovereignty of we the people. And then Chevron was overturned last year. So you can now link it and understand what he was talking about. We are beginning to educate, but it all comes down to education so people can understand the difference between a 14th Amendment citizen and someone that is sui juris, we the people. They're two separate worlds. They follow separate laws.
I think it's an important thing. What I learned when I was dealing with the township this week, and I pulled a couple of groups together, was how hard it is for people who have not been studying this for a long time to get their arms around this. And I think that the other thing is that those of us who've been studying it for a long time have to really be aware of the fact that it is overwhelming to people who have never studied this. And so the group that was there, I said, you know what, we're just going to meet at the barn and we're going to be friends. Okay. We're going to start doing some more gatherings here locally and be friends. And I'll be able to explain some things or teach some things that I happen to know, and do it in bite-sized pieces so that they have the time to process. I think that's an important part of what we're doing, is that sometimes I get into groups, and I think everybody else does too, with people that have specialized knowledge, and it's just like the nuclear physics type subject. Mm-hmm. It's so overwhelming that people do this. This comes down to horse training. Honestly, people are so much like horses that's not even funny. You can't, and I'm not saying you as directed at anyone, but what we have to be cautious of is when a person or a horse gets overwhelmed with too much knowledge, they run for safety. It's like I can't process this. I can't process this. And we've got to give them time to take in small bits of information and process that, because what they'll do is they start tacking that to the experiences in their own lives. And also too, until we do that, they will run away from this information because it's too much to process. And I think that all of us have been there at one time. Every single one of us has. None of us has the right to sit here and say we were born with this knowledge. We were born with nothing. We came in buck naked with nothing.
Amen.
And the only reason why any of us know this knowledge, and I think sometimes are so excited to share it, is because, and we want everybody to know what we know. But the problem with that is that it overwhelms people and they run with the hills. It feels like a beating to them. And the same things happen with horses. And I think it's important to, and this is what I'm going to do at the barn, and this is something else that I've really learned, is to give people a safe place that is where relationships build and such, and that they don't see people as pushing an agenda, which I think that that's why they see things, instead of it's somebody who's so excited about what they've discovered and they want to share it with everybody, right? I do that. I know I do that, right? And the intentions are good, but it's like horse training. When you are friends with a horse, or you are establishing that trust, they have to make the choices to go with you. You can make a horse go by putting a whip on them every single time. That's what bad trainers do. They'll put a whip over that horse, and out of fear, sheer fear, the horse will move. But as soon as that whip's gone, that horse despises you and will kick the crap out of you and will find every way they can to screw with you because you violated the laws of trust.
Yeah.
And
Well,
relationship.
there's also the trap that you can fall into if you have knowledge that you want to share with someone, that it can sometimes come off as you making fun of them for not knowing, or making them feel bad or guilty for not knowing. And that it's a real easy trap to fall into if you know something that someone else doesn't know and you're trying to teach them. And it's important to avoid that and make sure that people don't feel bad for not knowing stuff. I mean, our education system is not actually teaching people, so
it's funny you say that, Ralph, because that's what I used to try to do, was teach people. And now I don't. Now I just want to live by example and help people when they seek it. So, because you're right, I don't want anybody to feel bad. I didn't know this for 55 years of my life. I mean, I learned it in the last 7 years.
And it's purposeful. They want us ignorant.
Purposeful. They want us ignorant. So I haven't driven with a license on my car for 2 years. You know how many times I've been pulled over in the last 2 years? 0.
They know the truth. And it's like the fear that drives us into doing irrational things and falling into line with their information warfare is where we get out in the weeds.
You're right.
And when we trust God, no matter what comes our way, and no matter what, for example, if you run for office, and I'm as the chairman of the Constitution Party, I would love to see every single office that's open have somebody step up and say, I'll do it. I may not have all the answers, but I'm honest. That's all we need. We don't need career politicians. We need people that are actually have been damaged by what's happened in this world and wants to write it just for the sheer sake of making a difference on this planet. You don't need to know everything about the office, but you can start. And you can start to figure out who's really pushing an agenda, because that process should be in play whether you're running for office or living, just living. We should be able to critically think, to sort through things and make good decisions on who we should be listening to. Now, with that said, should we trust? What's the level of trust? That question gets asked of me all the time. Who do you follow? Who do you trust? No one.
No one.
And that's the answer.
God is the answer.
God is the answer. And
anything else is idolatry.
Is that every single person comes to this earth buck naked. Nobody started out knowing everything, which we never achieve that goal. Okay? We never know everything. We know a small slice of what's going on out there. Then we got to be okay with that. We don't have to be the master of this world. That's what Satan wants us to feel, and that's how we get off the rails real quick. But we can get in and go, you know what? If I don't know, if I don't know all the answers, I'm going to start looking them up. And I'm going to find out from other people. I'll canvass the people around me that I consider wise people or have mastery of said subject that I'm interested in. Does that mean you go to a political person? No. Does that mean you go to an expert in the field? Maybe, but you still have to listen with a critical thought. And you should come away from every interaction with more questions than the ones that you have answered. And because good people may have the best intentions. I'm not saying they're bad people. They may have great intentions, but somebody may be chirping in their ears and giving them bad advice. We hear this over and over again in regards to President Trump. You know, people say, oh, he's got bad people around to give him advice. Of course he does. Everyone does. It is absurd to think that we've got all good people around us all the time. It doesn't. The world doesn't work that way. And so, you know, even if you have good friends like Karen, Ralph, and Greg, and Bill, and people that you've spent a lot of time talking with, they may be right on some subjects. They may be wrong on other subjects because we're working through this thing called life. And they may have somebody next to them that's trying to sabotage what they're doing. So coming away with the questions is the only rational answer, and loving them and supporting them and realizing that they came into the world buck naked just like you did. And they don't have the answers. They've got their process and their lens, which may be helpful, but it's not providing necessarily all the answers to all the problems that plague the world.
Anything else is just idolatry of that human.
It is. And even with President Trump, I appreciate everything he's done. I question everything he's doing. And I try to look behind the scenes of, do I believe that he's a good man that woke up like the rest of us did at some points of our lives? May had some great things in his past, had some not so great things in his past. That's what it means to be human. And all of a sudden got a inspiration from God that said, hey, buddy, I want you to do this. And then, okay, I'll be willing to step up, and then find out that there's a lot of people that had that same aha moment as he had and are trying to figure their way through this. Do they have all the answers? Not a chance.
If you can't look back,
yeah, I think there's probably a good plan in place. Did they know every single detail of that plan? It's highly unlikely. But God knows.
If you can't look back at your past self and cringe, then you're not learning. Some of the strongest Christians that I know are the ones that screwed up the worst when they were younger and really turned their lives around. And they've got an incredible testimony.
Some of the strongest. What's that, Greg?
St. Augustine, perfect example.
Go ahead and elaborate, please.
I mean, St. Augustine, you know, went through life and had all these challenges and lived with a woman and had a child and he was a believer. He believed in God, but he saw all these crazy things that kept occurring. And now, I mean, I just recently read his books, Confessions of St. Augustine, and it was powerful because then he ultimately, once he disproved, you have to research, you have to learn, you have to, when I say something, validate what I say. When somebody tells us something, validate it. Show me in writing where it's written. Show me where it's written. Show me who wrote it. Show me what the context is of its writing. And St. Augustine went through his life, and his mother prayed for him every day. She literally was very religious. She was probably more of a saint initially than St. Augustine was, but ultimately he became a saint because once he disproved all these crazy things and realized it is God and God is love and love is us. It's our fellowship with each other. It's our interaction. It's our learning from each other.
They're supporting of each other. And
supporting of each other. And then he started to see literally everything in life is a miracle.
Everything.
I mean, the plants that Karen was just talking about, I mean, that's a miracle. It's a miracle to learn it, to watch it, to see it. We can't all do everything or be good at everything or even have the desire to do everything. But everything we do, we should do with love and compassion for each other. And everything I do and say, I do to help somebody else. Because the more we learn that we help other people, the more we become wealthy. It's not money. It's wealth of the love and the friendship and the fellowship that we get.
Well, let's think about the physical world too. When people are so tied into the physical world, they want to take dominion and enslave their brothers and sisters.
Amen.
That's their fun.
I used to be there.
When I think every one of us has to go through that. No one gets through life coming in here except Jesus Christ himself. The rest of us are born buck naked and have to get this thing figured out. That are we going to desire the physical world, and which comes with it controlling others? Or are we going to live in the spirit, which is, think about this, light goes through things. Light, there's all sorts of things that have to do with how God moves. It's very analogous to how God moves when you look at it. And so it's not constrained, it's free. And now let's talk about Liberty Essentials. When you free yourself from the physical world and you move into the spiritual world, none of this stuff really matters. Whether you live or die, you're already checked out on the whole worship of this planet and needing to control and have. Now think about this with our elected officials who have been literally captured, most of them by blackmail or by their own sin and desire to worship this world. They've literally put themselves into a prison of their own making. Yeah. But if we turn to God and we ask him to help us be like him, which is all of those spiritual gifts and all of the things that come with walking with God. I believe you can walk with God on this planet, but you're going to have to walk away from the love of the material world and love God greater than anything and everything, and realize that, you know what, goes back to physics. You can never lose anything. It just changes form. You don't die. You either go to heaven or you set yourself square into hell because you've made some. And I really think that anyone who tries to enslave, I saw an amazing example of this last night. I really did, of somebody that was trying to push choices another person was making and turned it into a panic situation when there was no panic there at all, in order to control another person by fear.
Which is what our government does with us.
And people do it on an individual basis too.
They do.
All the time.
It's evil. It's evil.
It's evil. We have to support each other because we don't know the path that God has each of us on. We can just support each other. We can throw out there what we know. We can help be like hey, I'm sharing with you what I know at this moment.
Amen.
Which can change if God brings other things to the table. Doesn't mean we're stupid. It means that we're constantly walking and learning what God wants us to know to help our brothers and sisters, which is everyone here. And guess what? We're going to screw it up.
That brings us back to the concept of forgiveness too, because it can be really hard to for some people to admit a failure or for example, a lack of knowledge, as we've been talking about. Why didn't I know this? And then they carry this guilt with them. Now you have to forgive yourself first.
You do.
If you're feeling that, you have to be willing to forgive yourself for any ignorance or any other deliberate failing, because just because you didn't know something or you didn't learn something when you thought you should have doesn't mean that you, like you said, you're stupid. Okay, well, maybe you were stupid. Get over it. You got to let that go. Because there's a lot of stupid in the world around us. And hey, that's just reality. There's just reality. And like I was posting yesterday, I've been feeling a lot of The mental illness concept has been really weighing on me in the last week. I saw 2 different videos, a Traverse City story being one of them. There was another one with it was on a Facebook video, and the video itself was not the bothersome part. The comments on the video were. It was a young woman, like a teenager, who was upset about a couple of guys that had moved out of a parking spot as they were getting ready to leave a restaurant. And apparently she felt like they were too close to her car, her and her mom. But she lost it. And I don't know what her mental status is. Is she on a drug that the government pushed on her with Big Pharma? Or is she mentally ill? Don't know. But her behavior was not normal. Her hand was shaking with adrenaline with a knife in it. She was stabbing at the vehicle. She was throwing her head so hard into the window of the man's vehicle, the truck, that she chipped a tooth on her own face. She did it to herself. And the man's on the phone with 911 describing the behavior and where they were, and I don't know what to do. Some of the comments included, well, that's what CPLs are for. That's what concealed carry is for. He should have gotten out and taught her a lesson.
Well, that's what Satan would want us to do, is to immediately react.
Well,
sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it is necessary to protect yourself. I'm not going to discount that. All right. But
and that's what I said. Like, if she was going after someone else in the parking lot instead of your vehicle, that's when you jump out and you start using another weapon if you need to provide distance between her and the danger. And if that means that she has to get shot in order to put that knife down so that she doesn't cut or kill somebody, just like the man in Traverse City. There was an armed man, and there were 2 guys with grocery carts that stopped this mentally ill man. And the government wants to charge him with terrorism. He's been mentally ill since he was a teenager. That's the story that I was reading elsewhere. This is not just criminal behavior. It's a much larger issue. But a lot of people, again, well, why didn't they just shoot him and save taxpayer dollars? And one of the points that I shared last night when talking about all this is part of the answer to these problems is that we have to shut down that conversation as soon as it starts. If you know somebody who rolls that out of their mouth, and especially if they call themselves a Christian, you need to call them out on it immediately. Because that is the problem with our society. It's not just the mentally ill girl or the mentally ill man who made a choice some time ago to take a drug that was laced with poison. He made a bad choice. But it's society's fault that we can think it's okay to shoot him for it. That's the evil in society. That's the Cain board. Shut that stuff down.
Can I point out the core with the whole thing and the whole argument? And the core is that people think they know what's going on in that situation, and they jump into these groupthink situations and have to be part of a group. So then they act like a bunch of sharks that are going for blood in the water, and they don't even understand the prey they're going after. And that's the problem. You know, I know you wrote the post that I wrote in response to your posts, and the fact that you know, I have a very, very disabled, mentally ill daughter, and we have lived this since 1999. And I can tell everyone, you cannot take these people, because people think that mental illness is what they felt in life. They've changed the definition of what true mental illness is to be that if you have a bad feeling or sad feeling, you have some diagnosable condition. And so everybody's got a condition now. But and I'm not saying that it doesn't require help. That's not what I'm saying. But if you've ever known somebody who is that extreme, or what real mental illness looks like, You will be shocked at what they're capable of doing. All right. My adopted daughter was her mother was killed at her side in a train accident. She has a closed head injury. When you feel her skull, there are plates that they opened her skull up and did surgery on her in a very, very, very impoverished part of India. Probably not. She's still got open burr holes on the back where they let the blood out of her brain to keep her alive. Her brain by CAT scan looks like Swiss cheese. It's got holes all over. She's probably missing half of her brain. Now combine this with the fact, and everybody's going to argue with me, but unless you're on the ground, and this goes with another discussion I had, unless you're on the ground and know what's happening, you don't know jack crap. And we all have to come to that realization that just because somebody told us something, and this goes back to Jesus again, unless you've walked a mile in their shoes, come to the realization and the humility of knowing you don't know jack crap. I don't either. I'm not saying that I'm special. But in this situation, I know this subject. I know the system. I know mental health, what real mental health looks like, in a way that I would say 99% of the people have no freaking idea. And what people it costs us probably about $100,000 a year to keep her out of being institutionalized. She would be in with the criminally insane. And there's no way, and our psychiatrist told us this too, the dynamics of watching how this really happens and what happens to the families and people around them, people that actually care about them and know the situation, that we do not know jack crap in the individual situations at all. Not at all. I'm not saying that there's an excuse or let them go ahead on their tirades of terror, because they will. Her psychiatrist said if we institutionalized her at the level of care that she would require, she'd probably be dead within a month, because she would be in with other people that are as criminally insane as she is, and she's very little. She's very, very little. She's 30 years old and she looks like she's 10. And I'm going to tell you that when you actually, if you ever know somebody who's got somebody, not that's in depression, which is also something that needs to be diagnosed, but when you see somebody or you're around somebody who is criminally insane and what they're capable of, like these situations that Karen has brought to light, this whole thing was exacerbated by the destruction of actual mental health in our society. And when you look at the people that are counselors right now, most of the time they're not helpful at all. They're making the situation worse by far. But when you look at the families, realize they have had to watch the people they love die step by step in front of them. I got to watch my daughter die. And she's a walking corpse right now, basically. And it's like we do everything, but she's not the same person. And you have to come to terms with that. So the families have to come to terms with this too. It's a painful process to know that they're going to slip away into lack of being able to touch reality by day. There's no stopping most of it. They can't stop it. They can only give relief to the symptoms as you're watching a human being die by inches in front of your eyes. And then with that comes with the people out there in society who want to jump onto the things that they don't know jack crap about what's really going on, and blaming all the caregivers. Well, there must be a reason why they're this way. And look at everyone who's trying to solve the situation with absolutely disgust and hate. It's got to be your fault. What did you do? You must have done something to create this, because this isn't normal. Guess what? Newsflash, mental illness isn't freaking normal. It's like seeing if we see a human being with an arm amputated, we can relate to that. Oh, there's something wrong here. They're not fully functioning. and the compassion of people go out to that person because we recognize there's something wrong. But when you see somebody who's criminally insane, we can't realize, oh, guess what? Because we can't see it. They're actually missing half their brain. And on top of that, they've got a genetic mutation that puts them in the world of crazy that will have them sitting there going, kill this person, kill this person, kill. This is what they do. It's so disturbing for most people to see people who are like that they can't relate. Now, I'm not saying we put up with it, okay? You have to constrain them from hurting other people. You have to. I wish we could go back to the county farms being there, because there used to be county farms, where people, they cannot be mainstreamed. I'm going to tell you this right now. Anybody that tells you that these people can be mainstreamed are stupid. You're not going to stop someone who has a mutation in their brain that you can't see. You're not going to fix them. It's like telling an amputee, come on, you can do it. I just know you can do it. Get both arms going and let's hang wallpaper. The same thing holds true with mental illness. Most people have never been, when they're exposed to it, they go right into attack because it's so uncomfortable to be around. If I was with you guys with my daughter for 15 minutes, she'll hold it together for about 5 minutes, maybe 10 on a good day. But after that goes on, she's talking to everybody out there that doesn't exist and taking directions from them. You could say it's demon possession. It's what it looks like. But we are out of our league dealing with this on a societal basis.
Yes.
And so some people like me who have tackled this straight on, because I run right into the fire. I don't run away from it. People have said, man, you need to throw her into an institution. Okay, tell a mom to send their kid to certain death. That when you don't know jack crap about the situation and take the easy way out, not going to do it. And in the process of this, to find out what it takes, we got a family that moved into the neighborhood, and they have a child that is extraordinarily mentally ill. And she's got cerebral palsy and she can't talk, and on and on. And the first time I walked up to her, she grabbed me, because a lot of times that's what they'll do. They'll grab you or grab your hair or something like that because they can't control themselves. And their parents were just mortified and waiting for that backlash to happen. Well, guess what? I have a child that would absolutely do that. And I'm like, oh, this is no problem. And I explained it away, and the relief and the absolute relief on their faces to see that they weren't going to be absolutely, chewed up alive. And why are you hanging out with somebody who's a lesser person? Happens. You're stupid because you're hanging out with somebody who's compromised all the time. And it put me on the track of trying to figure out how to do a better job with our elder care for people with dementia, like my mom and dad. And I took care of them too, until we couldn't anymore. And they died. But to put people who are in a horrible situation that the government only wants to victimize, they either traffic them, they make money off of them, they money launder around them through the system, they have an excuse to charge money for something that we should never be making money off of human suffering, ever. It's despicable. It's heartbreaking. And to go back to what you said, Karen, to go back into jumping into this group think crap and thinking we know what's going on without being within the situation has got to stop. It's ultimate arrogance.
Yep. And it's sinful. It's worse than just arrogance. It's because you're taking an action against someone else or promoting the same. God makes that very clear, and I reread the Substack articles before I shared them last night, and there's one about people giving their children to Molech or putting them through the fire and those phrases, but some of that was also If you allow it, if you look at it and you know it's happening and you do nothing about it, if you are going to promote it and support it being done by somebody else, you are part of the problem. This is an attitude adjustment that America needs as a whole. We're going to get the hose. Oh yeah. We need to get some punishment here because we deserve it for allowing that kind of commentary to pervade, and it's everywhere. All of these, man, anywhere you go on Facebook is the worst place I've seen it, because I'm in a West Michigan scanner group. So there's some one or two people will listen to the scanner all day long, and I'll type the things that are happening. Well, a child drowned in Michigan recently, 4-year-old in a lake. And one person said, that's a small lake. How can they miss the child? And they immediately started targeting the parents.
They do
And
it every
a
time.
lot of people, well, it's against the rules in this group, and a lot of people put them down for it, which is exactly what should be happening. You need to stop that. We're praying for the parents. We don't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened. You need to stop. That's what should be happening. Because this one person, she shared pictures of the lake. She just wouldn't let it go. And I reported it to the moderator, to the administrator of the group, because it violates the rules and it doesn't do any good for anybody. And I think they deleted the comments. You can't delete every comment somebody puts out into the air, but I wish we could sometimes. There's a few things that I've said that I wish I could pull back. But call it out. Because if you don't, you're part of the problem.
Okay, I want you guys to put yourself in this scenario. Okay, this actually happened. All right, one of the people who is a dear friend of mine who helps take care of my daughter. Okay, she is absolutely mentally ill beyond all description. Okay, and it takes very, very special people to be around her for any length of time, because she lies like a preacher. And she's manipulative beyond all reason. Okay, I'm going to tell you that. That's so manipulative. She went out. So one of the people that helps us take care of her decided to take her out to Hobby Lobby one day and get some stuff to do crafts. They were going to do some painting. She does full-time like art projects. She's got a puppy of her own and a pony. Okay. This child has got her own little castle here, just so you know. Even though there's no love that ever comes back from her, she's incapable of this. And it's like trying to take care of someone who there's never enough to fill whatever she's looking for, no matter what it is. She will eat. If you put her in front of a package of Oreos, she'd eat the whole package as fast as she could, make herself throw up. Okay, this is the way it goes. So this person took her to Hobby Lobby and said, well, you know what we're going to do today, Mika? We're going to go out and we're going to paint today, right? We're going to do painting, and this is what we're going to. So let's find things that you think are cool, and that's what we're going to do. So they get out to the checkout, and she sees a pair of socks in the checkout in the impulse area. This is a child. If you gave her $100, she'd probably buy 1,000 pairs of Barbie shoes. Okay, just irrational stuff, right? So she's in the checkout and she wants this pair of socks. This is now her focus and what she is fixated on. Those socks are the only thing that matters in this day, and says, I want those socks. Give me those socks, like that. And the answer was, no, you don't need any socks. Okay, I'm going to tell you what. This child has more clothes than Imelda Marcos. Okay. I'm just telling you that right now because I know, because I bought them. Okay. And so is going off on this irrational sock obsession, this one sock right over here. And the caretaker says, no, Mika, you mayn't have the socks today. We're going to focus on painting. So I want you to picture this. This is a Caucasian individual with a small Black Indian. Okay. South India, they're very dark and they're very small. And all of a sudden, she starts screaming. Now, put yourself in this position as a caretaker. It happens all the time. Help me, help me, help me, to the store. To which everybody looks at her and goes, what are you doing to this child? And so everybody's jumping on this to help this poor child who's clearly in their minds having a problem. And she is just sock obsessed with one pair of socks and decides she is going to scream and yell and help me as trying to say, okay, that's fine. Let's stop this. Let's get in the car. There's nothing going on here. And this situation went on until they got in the car and left. The caretaker so traumatized that ended up spending the rest of the day crying over this public display of horrific behavior. Put yourself in this position just for 5 minutes. And I've had discussions with people. Why do you think there's such a hard time getting people to take care of people who are mentally ill or developmentally disabled or people who have dementia? Because literally you will be the target of so much hate and anger. Unless you're a really strong person, it will probably drive you insane.
Oh, and I bet somebody called 911.
Oh, I'm sure they probably did. I'm sure somebody picked up the phone and 911. There's a child being kidnapped here. There was nothing like that going on. She wanted a freaking pair of socks.
Well, wouldn't it be a reasonable thing to do for someone else to say, look, I don't trust, this is not a normal situation. Something's going wrong here. Should we call for help from someone else because this needs to be discerned?
So I'm going to say this for everyone who's a parent out there. All right. All children are terrorists at the age of 3. All right. No two ways about it. My children were terrorists. Your children were terrorists. You tell me your kids were perfect, I'm going to call you a liar to your face. All right? Because we all know that that's not true. We were born in sin, and children are terrorists at the age of 3. How many people have brought their kids into a store or a mall, and they went absolutely nuts because of the same thing? They wanted that candy bar or that pair of socks.
I never did that. Because I had parents that squashed that before it ever became a thing.
Yeah, but you tested the waters. You tested them. I can tell you that. And if you said you didn't, I'd call you a liar.
I don't remember it. I'll say that. I do not recall.
Yeah. Okay. Now you just gave a legal answer there, Karen, and I love you for it. But anyhow, but the point being is, before you make a judgment, come to the terms that you don't know anything because you haven't walked in their shoes. Yep. That's okay to admit. And the second thing is we got to figure out a way to do this. And one of the things that I think it would be really important, and I would absolutely push for, is if I were governor, is respite centers where people could drop off these people who have literally held everyone hostage. You can't work. You can't leave them alone. You can't take them out of the house because all of a sudden somebody's going to call the cops on you and your family was going to be decimated and they're going to kidnap your kid through CPS. So if you had to place a respite center during the day where you could drop people off who have dementia or are mentally ill or who need extra care, now you can have both people who are trying to take care of them, let's say mom and dad, and they can go and take care of their other kids because the other kids get pushed away just because there's so much required time. And we could do this as a community to help each other. The churches should be doing this, but the churches are worthless. They're satanic 501c3 churches, which is absolutely worthless other than raising money to do some theoretical crap out there that never gets done that actually works to make our communities healthier. And shame on all of you. Jesus talked about the church being apostate. Guess what? On the timeline of reality, we are here. So now that I've made the rest of the United States mad, it's like, it is what it is. It's true. Deal with it or you're gonna be judged.
Well, that was one of the things that I brought up on one of my posts last night about this Traverse City man. And the friend who described what happened in his youth and what brought him to this point, he hasn't known him for years, but he knew how it happened in the beginning. And of course, this is one witness, so I don't know if it's accurate or not. Like you said, facts, right? But he described that Governor Engler was the one who removed all these mental health clinics from the state. And the brother, in a comment of the mental ill man, said, "We've tried to get him into facilities and we can't, there's no money for it. They can't get him in anywhere.
There's no beds available. If you have somebody
Well,
that wigs out in your family, good luck finding a place to put them. They're probably going to call the sheriffs and have the sheriffs put them in jail because the sheriffs have turned into mental health monitors."
Yeah, that's what I said. So if the sheriffs are not bringing it to the local government into the community and saying, there's no other resource for me because you're not funding it, that's a duty of the sheriff. I need something more than what the community has given me to deal with this problem here. And if the medical people are saying we need something else because these people are too violent, we need more support to put these people who are criminally insane. This man was found not guilty of a crime in 2016 because he was found to be insane. And he had criminal convictions for violence against other people for years. But they didn't put him in somewhere where he couldn't get out and hurt people. And how many people like him exist? And most of the time, people generally avoid him. They avoid the conflict. And he doesn't cause a problem. But on the day like this, he's a problem. And he could potentially kill people. They knew years before. And like I pointed out, his lawyers had him plead guilty. Did they not notice that there was something wrong with this guy, that they didn't say, hey, you know what, maybe we need an evaluation because I don't know if he's capable of making a plea? No, let's just take some money and we'll put him in jail and we'll just forget about him for a few years until it becomes somebody else's problem.
Well, and you mentioned too, having the sheriffs take some of the mentally ill people and put them in jail, even just for their own good, to even protect the people themselves, because they can very easily hurt themselves as well as other people. So to a certain extent, they have to have that for their own protection as well. And you brought that up with the sheriffs, and I know you've mentioned before how big of a problem that is when you were interviewing sheriffs around the state. But I've got another thing that I kind of experienced, in that I was hospitalized for a fairly life-threatening medical condition several years ago, and for a while they transferred me from one floor that was full to another floor of this hospital. And that's when I found out that they have one entire floor of this hospital is pretty much just dedicated to helping the mentally ill, where they take them in off the street and treat them for diseases either real or made up, so that they can give them a place to effectively exist in a safe environment. And the toll that took on the healthcare professionals in that hospital, just to care for these people that are absolutely insane.
Yep.
when this hospital was not designed for this, nor was it equipped to be a mental health treatment facility. It put the nurses' lives in danger just being there. Very much so. The sheriffs there, and I mean the whole thing. It was this sort of thing happens on a regular basis. They'll walk up to the emergency room and say, "Help me." they got to take them in.
Yep, and they're not equipped to do that at a lot of these places. They would have been had the mental health care system not been dismantled. A lot of those places were set up for that. They had people trained for it. They had the infrastructure there to be able to keep everyone safe. And the hospitals are designed for a completely different purpose than that. But they've had to adapt because this is a problem that needs solving. And they're doing their best to try and solve it. But there's a huge amount of burnout in a lot of those fields anyway, and this is also exacerbating that problem.
Yeah.
Well, going back to, I'm glad we had a discussion on this because I know this was really weighing on your heart, Karen, and you have an amazing ability to care for people. And when you see bad situations, it just, I know it just eats at you because you're so loving and you care about people, and it's absolutely the best that humanity has when we stop and pause and care for each other and discuss some of these things that not only do our politics. People always say, I don't like politics. I'm not in politics. Guess what? You're a frog in the soup right now because you're getting boiled alive by those politics. And you don't even know it. It's not do you choose to be in politics, you're already in it. And it affects every part of your life. And so, we need to figure these things out. And the shift in the way we look at things has got to change. That's where it starts. We're in a spiritual war.
That's what I was aiming for. Yeah, and that's why I reshared the Substack I called The Rape of the Rapist. That's where one of the things I started with last night, because I wrote it in February of last year, I think it was. Tommy Robinson shared the image and some description of a man that allegedly had raped an 8-month-old boy, causing injury leading to death. And when he was in a prison facility or jail, he was terribly abused, raped, beat up, and then they ripped his stitches out and did it all over again after that. That's the story. And Tommy Robinson's line at the bottom was, "This is totally justified." I'm like, no, call it out. So I wrote about it because first I did some research looking for facts. The age of the child, I found 3 different places where it said 3 different ages. The man's name was there, so I looked it up. Could not find any criminal convictions or court cases or anything on it. The story was 10 years old. So who knows what the actual truth about this was?
Who knows if it wasn't like a CIA setup and they wanted to get rid of this guy?
It could be so many different things. I mean, I didn't even know. We didn't know if the man was attacked. We didn't know if there was a child that was injured. When it said 20 quote unquote Christians in the jail attacked the man. I'm like, okay, obviously that part of the story is fake, because if there were 20 Christians in the jail, they would have been defending him from the other criminals in the jail. And that's okay. So I gave a bunch of reasons for why Tommy Robinson's statement was false. And this is a man who is known in the UK for calling out the government for being complicit in rape gangs there. So you would think he would have a better moral compass than this. But in the States, we have number one, the Bible, that says, as I said before, if you are promoting a kind of activity that is sinful, you're a part of the sin. And number two, we have this thing in America where you are innocent until proven guilty, and you're not allowed to be punished by having other criminal convicts or alleged criminals attack you and torture you. That's one of our founding principles, is we do not allow those things to happen in the States. And so for anybody to say things like, well, let him go to jail, we'll see what happens, like Obama, we'll see what happens when he gets in prison, those men will take care of him in the shower or whatever. The implication is we like to see sinful things happening to sinful people. That is not a godly expression. And if you find yourself thinking those things or saying those things out loud, then you need to re-examine your godly center and your sense of morality, because that is a huge problem in America and all over the world. Who cares what? I mean, I shouldn't say who cares. The story of the man, the story of the child, the story of the mentally ill, those are what brings up the true underlying foundational issue, which is, who do you worship, God or something else? Because if you worship God, you have to act like that.
Let's go to this next subject here and bring it back to God. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Yes.
If you look at Jesus's death on the cross, that was torture. They didn't just take care of the problem and say, you're guilty, you're done, we can't have this anymore, which would have probably, if it was not Jesus and they did it just to silence a somebody that was going to mess up their little crime syndicate they had going on there in the temple and in the synagogue. It was a crime syndicate what was going on, and he spoke out against it. It's the same crap that's going on here right now. But they didn't just say, you're done, capital punishment. They sat there and wanted to see him tortured on the cross. They wanted to see him in pain. And the damnation of every single person that was involved in wanting to create more pain on this earth should be closely evaluated. I don't think that's what we're supposed to do. If we're supposed to handle business, let's just say that somebody intentionally rapes a child. They're done. But do we turn into them by turning into someone who tortures that person? Or do we just eliminate the threat? Right. There's a moral question that everybody has to come to terms with. If you're looking for vengeance to making sure that they feel every single thing that they put on somebody else, there's varying degrees of it. Sometimes it can be a corrective action. You know, if somebody takes your stuff, they lose their stuff. Okay, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But when we get into the area of determining somebody's guilt for, say, raping an 8-month-old child, they're done. Send them back to God. We're done with this. We have to clean that kind of stuff out. But do we torture them on the way? Absolutely not.
And this is where I wanted to go with the children's Substack, because two things. One, as you were talking, what Bill had said recently was, as we have true grand juries and true lawful punishments, it should be, and this is figurative nowadays, I'm not calling for stoning of people. The person who makes the accusation throws the first stone. That's not an entertainment thing. That's not a Roman Colosseum entertainment kind of thing. That means you have to do something that you normally would absolutely dread. You do not want to hurt other people. If you are a good and normal, moral, godly person, you do not throw a stone at somebody else. If you're making an accusation against somebody else, you better be absolutely sure that accusation is correct and truthful.
Well, I've said this before, but the modern equivalent to that is the right to face your accuser. You know, It's not just about being able to identify the accuser. It's that accuser has to be able to stand up in front of court and you and accuse you of that. You know, it's more or less the modern equivalent of throwing the first stone, because by golly, they'd better back it up.
Yes. But then also the justice, we have to keep in mind that justice is twofold. We get an earthly justice that means, as you said, they don't get to do that anymore. They don't get to hurt other people, period. End of story. But then there's a godly justice, and we don't have control over that. And so in the story that I described in the Substack articles, we go to Manasseh. Manasseh is the grandfather of Josiah, and I've talked about him before, how he read of the book and the people repented and changed everything, at least for a while. Well, the same thing happened to Manasseh. He was causing his children to go through the fire. And he and the people got taken by another people. So they were in captivity. God punished them. Then Manasseh realized what he had done wrong, and he repented, and he prayed to God to forgive him. And he turned everything around by doing that. Even someone who, quote, caused his children to go through the fire. Weren't children in the articles, as I discovered, does not necessarily mean young, small people. It means children of God most of the time in the scripture. Doesn't matter how old they were. God sees us all as his children, regardless of how old we are. And the blood of Christ covers all of us. So if a man rapes an 8-month-old child, repents, and he does what he needs to get close to God, hopefully he'll have enough time to do that before he's put to death, if that's what the people decide to do, or he's imprisoned and dies in prison. But that is God's vengeance. That is not for us to do. We don't decide what happens to him spiritually. We can only look at what is justifiable for a punishment in an earthly sense. And if we do that objectively, we'll do it correctly. If we do it emotionally to excess, I mean, there's a certain amount of emotion that has to happen there. We're not human. But if we do it with too much emotion, then we go out of the way to allow for torture.
Well,
or to do that ourselves.
Is that I think we can approach it without emotion. I really do. If we stop thinking that we know everything and go in and the blind scales of justice, emotion doesn't have a part in it. And then you make the decision based on the facts and on what the consequences of our decisions for either letting someone go. And I think the judges should be if a repeat offender gets out there, I think the judges that are out there that make those decisions should be subject to the consequences of the repeat offense. You're going to have justice when that happens, because if they let a rapist out and a rapist goes out and rapes and comes back, whatever consequences for their action, whether it be jailing or something, that they sit their sorry butts in the cell with the person that committed the crime. They're going to be darn sure that this isn't going to happen again.
So is it the judge's responsibility to assign the punishment, or is it the grand jury?
The grand jury. I'll just say the grand jury. But the point being is that if somebody lets somebody off the hook, just because, like they're doing now, I mean, it's everything slap on the hands. If they let them off the hook and they come back and they repeat the crime or do worse, the person making the decision that let them off just for we have right now with these activist judges, without a grand jury, they need to if we're in the same system we're in, they need to serve the time with the person that repeated the crime.
But I would say, too, that the opposite would also need to be true to impose that if they imprison or execute a person who is then proven to be innocent, because that the opposite would also happen, because otherwise you basically just get judges or juries that just punish everyone regardless of guilt, because of trying to avoid the risk of the consequences.
Well, for example, a woman that accuses a man of rape that's doing it just to destroy their lives, that woman needs to suffer the consequences and bear the exact punishment that innocent person would have gone through. I'm done with these little girls screaming rape. It's not that it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that. But how many times do you have to look at with a blind scale of justice on this? How many men's lives have been ruined by somebody who was scorned or whatever and alleged that they did something they never did? That should have exactly the exact same punishment. If they're going to ruin somebody's lives, This is serious. You can't accuse people and destroy their lives in that said manner. It's evil. And I've
And
seen
a lot of times, even when they are proven to be innocent, that accusation is enough, because we have trial by public opinion with the way that the news media likes to report things. You may get the accusation printed on page 1, and then when it's proven to be false, page 12, there's a small footnote of a retraction.
So again, if the people do their job, the people would be crying out and saying, "Hey, media, this isn't right."
Yeah.
Yes,
Greg,
the media
Greg,
needs to be held accountable too.
the media absolutely does. What were you going to say, Greg?
Well, I think some of this has to do with the system that we have now created and overlaid in
Yeah.
our country is called a court of equity. And courts of equity are ruled by the judge and the two attorneys, both the plaintiff and the defendant's attorney. And very seldom are true facts argued in those courtrooms. And it's because in a court of equity, you file motions and pleadings and briefs that are based upon presumptions and hearsay. It's not based upon law. It's not based upon someone, both the plaintiff and the defendant, signing an oath, signing an
Right.
affirmation, signing under penalty of perjury that they would go to prison if they lie in their affidavit. And that's what common law, fundamental common law courts were. And that's what courts of record are in fundamental common law in the Republic. And the problem is that doesn't exist today. So no one goes into a courtroom and has to tell the truth, not even on the stand. It's up to the judge. And we've separated the law from the facts, and we let the judge determine the law. Well, the jury of my peers is supposed to determine the law. That was due process of law when this country was founded. That was one of the conditions, not separating the law and the facts and doing these courts of equity. I mean, that focus on statutory, civil, and political rights. I want my constitutional rights from the Republic. And put me in that courtroom. We changed these courts from Article 3 judicial courts to Article 1 legislative courts, and we think we get justice. You never get justice. You're going to get lawfare. You're going to get, whoever has the best attorney, whoever's got the most money is going to win 90+% of the time.
They won't even let people show up to their own hearings and such a lot of the time. Well, how can you do that if you need the eyewitnesses and you need people that were actually on the ground instead of all of their pretended cases and laws? That, I think that's what you're getting down to here, Greg, and saying that they're basing it on things that may not be applicable at all to this case, but they use it as an argument. You've got to stand on each case on its own fact, on its own.
Not on case law.
Not on case law.
Correct.
Okay, I have a question.
And in the case that we're in right now, the only affidavits that are truly correct and filed in that case is from the defendant, because we file things in affidavit format. Even the indictment itself is signed by a clerk of the DA's office that has no firsthand knowledge. How do you sign an affidavit and submit it to a court, to a judge, to issue a summons when she has no firsthand knowledge of any of the facts? Everything is second and third hand. Our system is so broken, but unless you understand that, and you understand it's a court of equity and it's a legislative court and not a judicial court. I mean, only men and women in America should only be charged and convicted in judicial courts, Article 3 courts, judicial, not legislative. And does away with case law. It does away with all this other hoax that they've created. They can win every statutory case they want to because statutory law is a creative law. It flows with, the times and public opinion.
It's a game. It is
It's
a game. It is not.
It's a monetary game.
It is a monetary
Money
game.
and
Exactly.
Money and power. And you know what? We have a solution. We have a solution that our founding fathers gave us, and it's sitting there underneath. All we have to do is resurrect it. We don't even have to fight a war. We can do it peacefully. We have to educate ourselves. And everything I heard, today in a lot of this discussion, these issues would be solved because in a fundamental common law court, a court of record, not a court of equity, a court of record that goes by the common law, in those courts, if you lie and you are the plaintiff, you serve the sentence that you're going after me for. And it does. It's tort reform in and of itself. The problem is, deep dark secret, no attorney on the planet wants this. None. Zero.
Right.
Why don't they want it? Why don't they want it? First of all, there's no money in it.
Right.
Because cases get settled much faster. There's a lot less cases. And only truth is being told in a courtroom rather than presumptions, assumptions, and hearsay, which is all they argue over. Everything they argue is based upon these, they call them prayers for relief, motions. And that's what you do in courts of equity. And you know why? Because if I'm an attorney, I make a fortune doing that. A fortune. And if I'm the best attorney, I'll win 90% of the time.
I have a question for you, Greg.
Sure.
So Donna and I have a little bit different perspective here. I believe that she's 99% right. And I've had this debate within the assembly before too. So, she was talking about how I am an emotional person. I'm a sensitive person, sentimental kind of person. And I find it difficult to remove that from who I am. I recognize that being objective and looking at facts is vital as a jury member. But I also believe that being true to self and recognizing the emotions of others, the emotional state of people involved in a situation, and my own emotions is an important part in making decisions on a jury. So I'm curious what you feel about that concept, because I know it gets debated from time to time. Should jury members be strictly objective, or do they count emotions as part of the picture overall, even if it's just a minor degree?
I believe juries should go with their heart, go with what they believe. And if it's in the fundamental common law, that jury member is going to be a vote relative to the law and the facts. And the law that they live by, hopefully, is God's law. And that's why you want juries of your peers, because you want people that know and understand both the plaintiff and the defendant in that community, because every community is different. We were supposed to be self-rule. That's local rule. And when I go into a courtroom, if I'm adjudicated by a jury of my peers, and the peers are educated by the judge or magistrate, whatever you want to call them, and the case itself, both the plaintiff and the defendant, they take all that into account. They don't take in, oh, you got to follow this case law. You got to follow this other case that was adjudicated this way. Every single case stands on its own merit. And it's unfortunately, that's devastating to attorneys and judges. It's devastating to their system, to their procedural, civil and criminal rules of procedure.
They're illegal. The bar should be completely abolished.
It effectively is abolished.
But we don't know it yet,
Well, people don't know it yet because people, again, it's education of the law. And that's, we were pulled over or my friend was pulled over for not having a license plate. And you know what? That's the one charge that he wasn't indicted for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was indicted for 4 charges. He was pulled over for not having a license. And everything they charged him for, the 2 felonies, were things that they found through an unlawful search and seizure, because they pulled him over because they wouldn't tell him what the charges were. They said, you don't have a license. And he said, correct, I don't need one. And they never charged him for it. You know what they charged him for? The one misdemeanor that they charged him for was refusal to produce his driver's license. Well, if he's driving in the private, he doesn't need a driver's license. He doesn't have to show it to you. If there's a felony that he committed and they charged him with 2 felonies, but they only found that material after they literally confiscated his car, did a complete search of his car, and then said that he was basically a drug dealer. I mean,
Well, I tell you what, I really like the way Mike Bambus deals with it, or Mike does. If you pull him over, and they say, give me your driver's license. And he said, is that an order or an ask? And if they say order, he said, it's $5,000 for me to produce it. He said, just like McDonald's, you go in and you place your order, you have to pay for it.
Well, let me tell you this.
If you're asking me, I say no. And he recounts several times as his habit. It's really funny. I want to bring up something that Ralph posted, and this is from Lord of the Rings, which was a brilliant quote, Ralph. True courage is about knowing not when to take a life, but when to spare one. And I think this is interesting. I picked up one of these other books that I have that I've got a collection of, and I just let it fall open. And this was very interesting. Plural law systems, plural gods. It goes back to God every single time. To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because there's no light in them. Isaiah 8:20. Goes right back to physics again. Sorry, guys. It's all tied in. Justice. What a long quest it has been for mankind. In every society, men seek justice and they never seem to find it. Why not? Because they do not seek the God of the Bible, in whom alone there is perfect justice. Why not? Because he dispenses perfect justice, and imperfect men know what this means. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Romans 3:23. What men say they are seeking is honest judgment, but honest judgment implies a standard, honest law. Honest judgment is not based on the wishes of the few or the will of the mighty. It is based on the wishes of the mighty one. Honest judgment can only be secured when we turn to a law that rests outside the partisan interests of fallen men. Honest judgment must rest on objective norms of justice and law. But modern man does not want to admit that such objective standard exists. They tell us to search elsewhere. Should we appeal to the latest polling statistics? Is it the United States Supreme Court and final court of appeal for Americans? What the Bible says is that final court of appeal is the judgment seal of God. There is unquestionably a Supreme Court, but it is not some national Supreme Court. It is a heavenly court. No earthly court of appeals should be given absolute and final jurisdiction. I think this could be really interesting to go through this, and it's really amazing that it went to the plural law systems going on here and why this is important. The study of any subject must be placed within the limits of a biblical worldview. I'm just going to read a few first sentences of the paragraphs. That's what people who speed read or have the ability to remember and know that this works every time. I've kind of got an eidetic memory, but that's beside the point. This also works. One lawgiver, one law. In biblical terms, there is but one law and one lawgiver. God thought enough of his law to send his son to keep it in every detail. If the Son of God was required to keep the law, should anything less be expected of the sons of God? Jesus was tempted at every point with respect to obeying the commands of God, yet he remained sinless throughout his life. He kept the perfect law. There was no need for Jesus to offer up sacrifices for his own sins because he committed no sins. Hebrews 7:26-28. Instead, he offered himself up as a lamb without blemish as the law in order to cleanse us from our sins. Hebrews 9:14. The entire race has been found guilty on the basis of God's law. while the law ceases to condemn the Christian, Galatians 3:13, because of Jesus' perfect obedience and his substantive atonement, all people are held accountable to keep the law as a standard of right and wrong, Romans 3:31. Individuals, families, schools, churches, business establishments, and civil governments must choose the law of God as a standard for decision making. Since the individual is not free to break the law, the courts are not free to judge on any other basis than the law order that was set forth by the Bible. I think this is, there's a next section of reforming society, power of the sword, which is what we're talking about. When do you use a sword and when you spare a life? Judicial safeguards, natural law, so, a law in wolf's clothing, somewhat, and then the summary beyond this is that men has always sought justice. God is the source of justice that is truly just. Honest judgment always rests on objective law. The Bible tells men what his just legal system looks like. Dominion is always exercised in terms of a specific view of the world. To search for justice apart from the Bible, to pursue ethical subjectivism, many opinions, many voices, many laws. Natural law is one such fruitless, it's self-defeating search. We'll have to get in and look at that one. Legal pluralism is the reign of subjectivism and relativism. The only one lawgiver and therefore only one true law, and that would be God. All people are held accountable before God to obey biblical law. And that last court is going to be the one where we meet God face to face. And I think it's going to be, I think all of us are going to be a little surprised. And because we are imperfect, we can try to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect. He knows that. And he sent us away through his son, Jesus Christ, to let him lead us and learn to be led by God Almighty.
Well, and I think too, to Karen and Greg, your point about the priority, I guess, of or how much to integrate factors outside of the law into a decision when you're on a jury. There's a reason why we have the concept of jury nullification, in that is one of the final safeguards of our legislative system against immoral laws, is that it goes, when a law goes through, it goes through the legislature, goes through the executive, then it can be ruled upon in the judicial. But then there's that final stage there that when it comes back around to the jury, the people themselves have the ability to eliminate immoral laws. And I would say that that's not necessarily something that's to be driven by emotion so much as it's also the logical extension of the power system in the checks and balances that we have. And there's also a reason too why the courts are terrified of people on the jury knowing that the concept of jury nullification even exists. I've heard of a lot of people that have gotten kicked off of juries when they have brought that up and found out that the potential jurist even knew that jury nullification was a thing.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't even be that shouldn't be means for disqualification from being on a jury if it weren't for the fact that they are scared to protect a power system that they really have no authority on.
Greg, I've wondered about this before, could someone sue a judge when a judge or an attorney removes them from the jury pool during selection process because of something like that? Is there an avenue for someone who says, I am willing to do my juror duty and you remove me from that because of your bias?
Well, right now, in 90% of the courts in America, they are courts of equity, not courts of record. So you have no opportunity to go after an attorney that doesn't want you to sit on that jury. Again, we have to learn we have to go back and teach ourselves the Bill of Rights and our constitutional rights. And we have to understand what type of courtroom we're even in. Because right now we're following statutory and codes, procedural law that's called case law, or, administrative law. It is not law. It is not God's law. It is not the law of our Constitution. That our constitutional republic, that is the law. And when you go to sit on a jury, you are being, requested to sit and adjudicate facts of a case and let the judge adjudicate the law. And let me tell you, the judge is going to get his way most of the time, regardless of the facts of the case.
Mm-hmm. So I think I figured. Go ahead.
It's understanding the difference between those two things. I mean, and whether you are being tried as a person, I mean, it is not someone without constitutional rights. If you're being tried as a person, which is 99% of all cases, you don't have constitutional rights. You have what they call civil and political rights, which are really privileges. They've converted your rights to privileges. And therefore, the jury doesn't know that. And if the jury doesn't know that, then they have no way to adjudicate that case, even the facts of the case. It's impossible. I mean, because you don't even, it's like they're hiding the truth from you. And when you hide truth, then how do you adjudicate something if it's like, I mean.
It's like going in any situation blind. You're literally going into it blind, and you don't even realize that you're standing in front of a semi. Right. And that goes back to, Donna, your point before, why, you can't show a whole case to a jury. You've got to have all these sidebars, and you've got to have all this stuff that's, hidden from the jury. That is important facts of the case. And if the jury has to decide the law and the facts, you can't hide any of that stuff from the jury. And therefore you come out with a much better decision in most of these cases versus just having the best attorney that can literally guide around what the jury gets to hear and what they don't hear.
Well, guys, this has been a wonderful discussion, but I'm going to have to get going. So feel free to continue, but I'm going to have to bow out.
Thanks, Ralph.
Have a great day, Ralph.
Bye. And I think that's another thing is this transparency they keep talking about, which we have none of.
Well,
in the court system, none of it's transparent.
There's no transparency because the judge literally can strike from the record anything that goes against what the judge doesn't like.
How did they get to this point, Greg? How did they get there to have that much power?
Because in 1871, we overlaid a democracy on top of a republic. And therefore, they created legislative courts in the democracy. And this judge wants to keep calling us pro se, which finally the district attorney sent us the indictment. And on the front of it, it says sui juris.
I'm seeing the barcode. Let's see. I don't know if I can make you bigger in this. Go that way.
Can you see it?
No.
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
That came. And by the way, the district attorney actually wrote his name in his Christian name, which is they never do. Now, the case itself is not against the same entity. You open up the case, and the case is against his vessel. If you can see that.
Yes.
It's against his name in all caps because that's his vessel. And the charges, again, he got pulled over for not having a license plate. You would think that would be the very first charge. Doesn't exist. He's charged with 2 felonies, and he's charged with resisting arrest. Well, by the way, you can resist an unlawful arrest. There's nothing wrong with resisting an unlawful arrest. And all he did but to resist it was take his arms and fold them together. They call that resisting arrest. That's what he did.
Wow.
Why did they call that resisting arrest, Greg?
Why did they call it resisting arrest?
Yeah, the folding. Why was that a bad thing?
Because they kept asking him for his identification, even after they already had his identification, because they literally hijacked his car. They invaded his space. You know, when you're pulled over, if you're pulled over and the officer doesn't immediately tell you what he's charging you with, that's false imprisonment. That is false imprisonment. We have the right to free travel. So the minute they pull you over, the one thing they want to do, it's called putting you in contract. They want you to give them your license, because the minute you give them your license, that means you're in commerce and you're in contract with them. That's why we don't give our license, by the way. I don't want to be in contract with them. I'm not in commerce. I'm just driving my car, going to the grocery store, doing whatever. You're not. Most people aren't in commerce 99% of their life. Unless you're driving somebody else around, you're not in commerce. And that's why they didn't charge us. You know, the most powerful thing people should see is there's 4 charges in his case, and there's not one for exactly what they pulled him over for, driving without a license plate.
It's like anything else. They're just looking for more reasons. If they can't hang you on the first one, and somebody gets their feelings hurt, some power hungry cop gets their feelings hurt, who's on a power trip, they're going to find something to try to charge you with.
They put him in jail for 8 hours. They told him he was going to be in for the weekend, but they put him in jail. They took his liberty for 8 hours to impound his car for the weekend so they could inspect the whole thing to find something to charge him with. You know what that is? Unlawful search and seizure. That's his private.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Is he got in his mind to go after him for like a few $1 million here or more?
Oh no, we're going after him. We will flip from the defendant to the plaintiff in this case in the matter of months.
Well, I tell you, that happened to me Tuesday night with our township board when they tried to shut me down there. They literally insured themselves a lawsuit.
Well, and this lawsuit will come from a sui juris. It will come from one of we the people, and it will come against. There were over a dozen officers that came. He called for backup, and 10 officers came to arrest him. Now, and what did they charge him with? The only thing that would give them a right to impound his car and then search his car is if he committed a felony. Well, the only felonies are things that they found inside of his car. There was no felony. I mean, in order to be arrested in this country, you have to commit a felony or you have to breach the peace. Crossing your arms so they don't arrest you. And he kept ordering him out of his vehicle and he never, ever charged him with anything. You can't order a person, an individual out of their vehicle if you haven't charged them with something.
That's detaining a person. When they do that, that's detaining them.
That's false imprisonment.
It's imprisoning them where they stand.
And by the way, you can be false imprisoned for 1 minute. If a cop pulls you over just to try to find something on you, that's false imprisonment.
Mm-hmm. So that's where I was going. That's what my question. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. No, go ahead. The concept of coming to court with dirty hands, like I've seen Judge Judy do that, and so that's how probably I learned about it. It was probably from Judge Judy. So that same concept, it seems like it would apply here if it's that search and seizure concept where a cop busts into somebody's house or goes in, and then they find something else and they charge them, and the defense is you didn't have a warrant to be here. So if he pulled him over without cause, do all of the other charges instantly go away legally?
instantly go away.
Okay, so I'm right, but you're just going to have to fight it.
By the way, and that's why the police officer in his report, the only affidavit filed by the county is filed by a clerk that is spewing hearsay. And attached to her affidavit is the officer's report. And when you read the officer's report, he says, I pulled him over because of his license plate, which, by the way, I'll read what his license plate says. His license plate says, where is it? The plate stated, for the detention of this traveler is with a fee of $500,000 in gold. So that's what my license and his license says. And by the way, he didn't charge him with that. You know why? Because it's not illegal to drive without a license plate, which he claims. He goes on to say in his statement that it is against their statutes, to drive on their roads without a license. Well, he's 100% right if I'm in commerce. If I'm not in commerce, I don't need a license.
If you're driving, it is. If you're traveling,
I'm driving, because a driver is in commerce.
A driver is in commerce. Traveling is our right.
Correct. So believe me, Rob and I know what to say when we're pulled over. And he said, and it's throughout this report. I sent it to you, Donna, so you can have it. We can use it for the next show or something. But it is powerful because they've indicted themselves. They've indicted themselves. I mean, it will be so easy. And by the way, every one of them's guilty, including the clerk, because they're all committing in Trump versus United States Supreme Court decision from last year. We notified them up front. Every one of your acts are unofficial acts because you're a private court suing one of we the people, someone with constitutional rights. We stand on this. We will stand on this. We'll take it all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to. But I want everybody in the country to see what this is, why it is, how it is. I don't recommend anybody do what Rob and I have done. We're doing this to create the conflict so we can show the hypocrisy of our court system today that is in Judge Gorsuch's book, Overruled, and in his first book, A Republic If You Can Keep It, which are Benjamin Franklin's words after he signed the Declaration of Independence. We kept it for 125 years, and then we lost it. Let's get it back. It's never left us. It's sitting here. It's just dormant because everybody acquiesces to their person, to their vessel, to their corporation. We converted what's called the fruits of our labor to income. Income's from a corporation. I mean, they're not shy about repeating it now. We are a democracy because everybody's agreed to get rid of the republic and go into the democracy. Well, I live in the republic. I live in the private. And my government is there to do one thing and one thing only, protect my rights. Well, do you think they're protecting Rob Smijunas' rights?
They're so off the rails, it's not even funny.
But this is going to be fun because at the end of the day, I mean, the judge is going to be there tomorrow, and we're going to educate the judge and the district attorney, who, by the way, now admits that it's sui juris. I mean, we don't want to, she keeps calling us pro se. I don't want to be pro se. Pro se represents my vessel. I don't want to represent my vessel. I want to represent me. Why do I have to say pro se if I want to represent myself? It seems ludicrous. Well, they don't want to tell you the truth. The reason you have to is because they created this little corporation for you that you're representing. Pro se is representing that corporation. And by the way, I understand it's okay to represent yourself pro se. Just understand what you're doing. If you want to represent yourself and you're living and breathing, then you represent yourself sui juris, because now you can live and breathe, and now you have to go by fundamental common law. That's the only way they can sue me. It's fundamental common law. That's in an Article 3 court, not a legislative court. This court has no jurisdiction over us. None. Zero.
Okay. So I learned something the last time you were on. There are only 3 ways that a person can be arrested.
Correct.
So he was not he was not disturbing the peace.
Well, obviously, he was on the side of a road in his vehicle, in his private vehicle. So that's not disturbing the peace, especially with 8 officers and guns standing around
No,
you.
before that. I mean, just to get pulled over, he was not disturbing the peace.
Correct.
He's traveling down the road. Number
Correct.
2, the officer did not witness a crime.
Correct.
And number 3, he had no warrant.
Correct.
So then I have a question. So I learned yesterday that Mike was talking about motor vehicle law.
Correct.
That your motor vehicle is correct. It is called a motor vehicle when you are in commerce.
Correct.
So if I get pulled over and I'm having a conversation, which I don't think I would feel competent enough to do right now, but would I call my my truck or my car? Would I call it a truck or a car? Because I have a tendency, having had some first responder history, of calling things vehicles. Does vehicle cross boundaries there? Is it okay to call it a vehicle? Or do you place yourself into commerce by referring to what you are traveling in a vehicle?
Here's the most important thing to learn, Karen. And that is that you are living and breathing, and you are sui juris. If you make a mistake in front of an officer, it's okay. You can correct the mistake you make. But I will tell you, they have changed and perverted definitions, so no one understands definitions anymore, especially definitions in law, because I would never have thought that a person was a vessel. But read it in Black's Law. It is a vessel.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So I never thought that 5 years ago. I would have never, ever thought that a citizen of the United States made me a resident of the 10 square miles of District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. I would have never thought that. I would have thought a United States citizen was someone that lived in one of the 50 states. No, those are called state. I mean, I'm a state national. You got to be so specific with what you call yourself. I mean, I am one of we the people. That's who I am. And when an officer comes up, he must charge you with something other than a statute if you're driving in the private. He must charge you with a transgression. You know, constitutional rights have one limitation on them. One. First of all, no law can ever be made in the history of the world unless China takes America over through World War III. But if that doesn't happen, and obviously that hasn't happened, and we still have a constitutional republic, no law can ever be made to go against my rights, ever. You can't limit them. You can't limit free speech. They have, but they've done it through changing rights to what they call in their new constitutions, including in your state, civil rights. Civil rights. Well, those aren't rights. Those are privileges. And now you pay for those privileges. Well, it's comical when you think about it. By the way, we did get the judge to admit in the very first hearing, and now we've got 3 people that were present that wrote it in an affidavit. She said the organic constitution is the law of the state of Indiana.
Wow, that's like a huge win. Wow.
Yeah.
She doesn't know that's a win for us yet because we haven't given her those affidavits. But the minute we left, we had each one of them write an affidavit. So we've got those ready to go. And this judge, this district attorney is going to find out. Now they're going to drop this case probably because you know what? They
already lost it.
They're in deep trouble, and it's costing them because that's a real contract. That $500,000 in gold is real, and it is this case. This gentleman that they pulled over is a real estate developer in Cincinnati that is of significant means, and this case could bankrupt this county. It is. But you know what? These are the kind of, and we're not doing it for the money. The money is secondary.
Oh, you're
It's
doing it for the justice. You cannot
the
have
justice of these. I
Yeah.
mean, and I hate to be this way, but you know what? We'll give remedy to someone that acquiesces and comes in and says, boy, I didn't know the law. We've educated them in 8 notices. She struck everyone from the record. You know what she didn't strike from the
Wow.
record? She didn't strike our last motion to dismiss, which I had sent you, and it included every single thing she struck from the record. So by attachment. So it is, I've got it into her.
I love that.
This is not a court of record. It's a court of equity. But literally what we're trying to do is show the hypocrisy, because the only person that has signed an affidavit that has truth and knowledge of the facts is Rob Smijunas. The court, not even the sheriff has signed not even the officer that pulled him over signed an affidavit. Don't we find that interesting? I mean,
Yes.
crazy.
you know why he didn't? Because he lied, because what he put in his affidavit or what he put in the court record is not what's going to show up on those cameras. In fact, he admits that his camera miraculously fell off and fell on the floor. Although
Oh my
he
gosh.
seemed to have the entire recording of it. And remember, there were 10 officers there. So there's lots of cameras. So
I think it would be really fun if you go over to make sure that you're recording. I think everybody should record everything.
he was on with his wife. He was on with his wife. He called his wife. And you know what they did with his phone? They
What's that?
ripped it out of his hand and slammed it on the ground.
Oh, are
Uh-oh.
you kidding
Oh,
me?
no.
Oh, no, I can't wait to see these.
Oh, this is like
He says in his report that he tried to take his phone away as he tried to arrest him for no charge. There was no charge. At the time he arrested him, there was absolutely no charge.
Giving, Greg.
What?
Greg, this is the gift that just keeps giving.
Oh, this is, by the way, this is all God, because the facts of this case are so egregious against this county. And it's just to show truth. I mean, God is giving us this so that we literally can show people what we're supposed to be living like in the constitutional republic. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to treating people with love and respect and not, statutory code, which is only making attorneys in the American bar and judges absolute fortunes. I mean, you know what? Let's live like a civilized society that entered into a social compact with our founding fathers. And that's so it goes back to the one that you started reading today. I mean, we need to go back and read these compacts. We need to understand what a compact is. And all the rights are beginning to make sense. They're out of the Constitution. They're not even part of it.
Yeah.
They are not in the Constitution. They are excluded from the Constitution for a reason.
And let's, this is fantastic. I really, the going through all of this and relating it to eyewitness stories or specific cases is where we're going with this. And you know what? Nobody knows everything that there is out there. I'm going to keep going back to that. Okay.
And I understand.
I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that I know you understand it. I'm just saying that to everybody. I'm throwing it out there to the world right now. And we don't have to feel stupid. It's like when you jump in, a lot of times you learn along the way. And every time you go into a situation, you're gonna make some mistakes. The next time you come back, you're going to be loaded for bear because you're going to see that trap that's set. And then it is a process. It really is such a process. I thought I'd bring this up for a minute and show people. This is on wethepeople2.us. That's part of the people that you're working with. And in that site, they have a PDF of the maxims of law, with over 1,600 maxims listed under 105 different subject headings being alphabetically arranged. And I think this is nice to know that some people, yes, you know what, I have that.
We're going to give this gift to the judge. We're going to give it to the judge and the district attorney tomorrow.
Oh, that's fun. So I think here, this is really interesting. I actually bought that book. I told you that when I bought Black's Law Dictionary a couple of years ago before I met you, but once again, we all have a certain bandwidth that we cannot exceed. So, we all do the best with what we have, our time and everything, and try to make it count. And
by the way, these are incorporated into our organic constitutions of our states. This is incorporated. This is the law of the land.
Okay.
What you're reading, these maxims of Charles Weisman, that is the law of the land.
Let's read this a minute, because I think this is important to.
I think it is
to read this. Would you like to read this? I could probably let's see if I can.
Yeah, let me see if I can make it a little bigger for myself. I apologize. Yeah, I can read it now.
Okay, go ahead. And why don't you read this and then expand about this? And maybe this is something else that we could do, is go through these documents, take a pause, and discuss them once in a while. I mean, we're learning how to do this better too, just like everybody else is, so that people have time to process. And these subjects are so heavy. I understand. And it's very hard for the average person to jump into these conversations. And I can see the blank stares out there going, what the hell are they talking about? Right.
Yeah.
And so when in a teaching method, let's go ahead, and maybe this is what we should do, Greg, on your segment too, is talk about some of this, but let's go through the maxims of law, and let's become acquainted to this and be acquainted to what happened. Because I'm going to tell you, with the report that I wrote in front of, because I almost got arrested. Okay. They were trying to figure out how to either arrest me or detain me. And they knew they were screwed because they knew I knew the law. And I'm like, and I said it to the judge. I said, if you do not uphold my rights and you stand with the traitors, I said, choose who you stand with right now. And I was quick, brutal, and to the point. And they're sitting there, she's like, I don't even know they're like, I don't even know what's happening here. But I didn't get up there, and I advised our group. I said, don't get up there because you're angry. Go up there and quote the law. Quote the law to these people. They don't know it. And I generated an 8-page report, tried to simplify it. But the more we know and the more we can quote by getting up there, and I stood on the Constitution and constitutional violations, which is what we have to learn. And so let's plan on going through the maxims of law and teaching people and just reading it. Because if we do it in a metered way, just like horse training, people are going to think about it and connect the dots to things that are going on in their lives. And once you can, this is the problem with our whole education system. If you can't put it into something that is applied to a situation, you will never learn it. I'll guarantee anybody. This is one of the reasons why honestly, I homeschooled. My oldest son was done with high school at 10 years old. I want you to think about that.
That's amazing.
And tested out at 10 years old. He was the equivalent of a high school graduate.
Scary.
It's
awesome, and it's scary. Not obviously it's great for your son, but it's such an indictment against our education system.
Yes.
And we can all learn this way. But, I guess what I'm doing is I'm being mom to all of you right now, because I've already done this, and saying we have to tack this to things in real life situations that we can apply things to. Otherwise, it just becomes a blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I do it. I'm not saying that I don't do it. I do it too. We're learning as we go, and we're learning how to be better at helping each other. So why don't you start reading, Greg, and let's go a few paragraphs and then take a pause, and let's see if there's any comments there. So go ahead, or whenever you feel like it.
In law, as with any science, there exist certain fundamental principles which form its basis and to which reference must be frequently made in its application. These fundamental principles in law are referred to as maxims of law. Sir William Blackstone says they are somewhat like axioms in geometry. Certain maxims of law have prevailed throughout recorded history. They can be found in the Old English Common Law, in the ancient Roman law, and can be found in the Bible as well. These maxims of law are so manifestly founded on reason, necessity, and divine precepts, that they have been made universally accepted as being true rules and principles of law. They thus have become a part of the general customs and common law of the land of every civilized nation. So we don't have a notice, we don't have an affidavit, we don't have a court filing that we haven't included many maxims in our filing to the court so that they know what the real law is. The problem is attorneys who are learned in the law don't even have a maxim book. They don't even know what, a lot of them don't even know what maxims are. I'll bet 80% have heard the term, don't even know what they are.
That's so sad.
It is so sad. And it's the law of the land.
But it's nobody's fault. Once again, we're not saying this is.
I'm not indicting anyone. You know,
right, and
well,
I know you're not.
True.
I'm just.
I am indicting one entity. I am indicting the American Bar Association. They created this scheme that they had planned to roll out to change our law away from this, away from God's law, away from a Republican form of government, a republic form of government. And they changed it into a statutory case law system. So I am indicting them. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't indict the people that went to law school legitimately thinking they were going to learn the law and they were going to practice law. And the problem is, I get it. You probably spent $250,000 on your education to go to law school, and then you found out you can't even compete with a guy like me who just learned the law in the last few years because you don't know the law. And none of these, this judge doesn't know the law. This district attorney, he's been there 24 years, doesn't know the law. He doesn't know the law of the land. He knows maritime law. He knows case law. He knows statutory law. He knows how that process works, and he knows he can win 99% of the time. Well, you can't win against the sui juris, period, unless you bring God's law and the law of the land. And they don't bring that to their courts. In fact, they can't even bring that to their courts because they're only allowed to adjudicate in statutory codes. So they can only adjudicate between corporations. That's the only thing they can adjudicate. That's true of 90% of every court in America. What I just said is so profound that they can't use these maxims in their courtroom. So what does she do when we file a maxim? And I say she because it's a woman judge. And I will never give her the respect of calling her a judge because she's not. She's not adjudicating law. She's adjudicating statutory code. That's not a judge.
Did you guys see what just happened here on Brandenburg News Network? We're not confused on what a woman and man is right now.
Or a judge.
Nobody here is confused. You know, we've got this whole thing figured out. So
did I screw up? Did I say something wrong?
No, you didn't. You reaffirmed it. You said a she. You used the correct pronoun because we're not confused.
Yeah, so, I'm not confused.
Sorry, I'm the comic relief here sometimes.
She is a woman who identifies as a judge. There you go.
There you go. This is the comic relief part of the heavy teaching right now.
Well, I'd like to just read a couple of the quotes so we don't have to read it all because these quotes are powerful. A maxim is so-called because its dignity in chiefest and its authority the most certain, and because it is universally approved by all. No maxim can ever be argued against in a court of record. It is taken as law, and if you properly use a maxim, no one can adjudicate it because these aren't 250-year-old maxims. These are 2,000-plus-year-old maxims. I mean,
they're just too old. They're just too old, Greg. We're just going to have to set them aside.
You're right. Well, and that's what they did, literally. I mean, then it goes on. This work is executed with so much learning and judgment that I do not recollect a single position in it has ever been judicially denied. It may still be considered as the fundamental code of the English law. What's so important is our founding fathers knew that these maxims were so critical to our foundation that they made the fundamental common law the law of the land. They made it the law of the land, They put it in our constitutions, and it was removed by the ABA. It was removed by attorneys in 1871. They removed it. It still exists, but it doesn't exist in our courtrooms except when you get all the way to the federal district courts and the Supreme Court of the United States.
Can you imagine, going back to trying to defend our biases, right? We've talked about that a lot. How we need to let go that we know exactly what's going on and just be open as students to learn something new every day, such as this, and have our realities shifted into a more accurate reality. This brings me to the question I have, like I said, every time I hear something, it always brings more questions to the surface. How many other things have they removed and manipulated? The whole thing.
Everything. Our rights, our constitutional rights, and I'm not talking about the new constitution that they all endorsed, but the original one. Our rights were so sacred and so to be protected. We had redress of grievance against our government if they ever did anything. Well, what I am in favor of now is we need grand juries seated for we the people, because the way to get redress of grievance is I want both Democrats and Republicans in this country to come together to set our differences aside. I was a lifelong Republican. I'm not either. What I am now is truth and justice, and I want to indict under redress of grievance. I want to indict all these bad actors, and I want to indict them under maladministration, which is the only crime in America that's worse than murder. Maladministration is worse than murder. Why? Why is that? Why is maladministration so serious? Well, it's serious because our founding fathers felt strongly that if you committed maladministration, which meant you did something and you've been called out and you didn't change what you were doing, you were going against a king or a queen. We are kings and queens in this country without subjects. In Great Britain, there's a king and he has subjects. We are a king and queen without subjects. And the only thing I cannot do is transgress against you as another queen or Karen as another queen.
Now,
I can't transgress against you.
Let's take this down to the township levels of around all of us.
Amen.
And once again, making the plea, if you're an honest person and you want to start learning this is learnable. You can learn this. You can have probably more expertise than, I would say, 99% of the people around you, because so few people have taken the time to do the work that it needs to master, or I don't know if you ever master anything really, but to get a grasp on this so that you're not totally lost. And when you do that, you stop being blown around by the emotions, by the lies, by the manipulation, by having to jump into a herd of sheeple or lemmings jumping off the freaking cliff. It is so important. Can you go and read just a bit more of this? I'd like to do a couple more stops here.
Absolutely.
I like the next one. This is in a letter to Darby Terrell, Esquire, in 1821. Jefferson made this recommendation.
You mentioned to me your intention of studying the law and asked my opinion as to the sufficient course of reading. First, begin with Koch's 4 Institutes. Let me put my glasses back on. I'm sorry. John Rutledge, a signer of the U.S. Constitution and the Constitutional Convention, remarked that in regard to particular law books, Koch's Institutes seem to be almost the foundation of our law. The brief examination of the earlier case reports of England and America will readily show the importance which was attached to the acknowledged maxims of law. Maxims were continually relied upon to settle matters dealing with wills, inheritance, land, economics, crime, marriage, property, contracts, rights, and virtually every aspect of law and jurisprudence that would arise. That is so powerful. I mean, it is so important for us to understand maxims of law that they got rid of dealt with everything that they recreated in the statutory realm. And they said it wasn't, this is the new law. Well, no, it's not the new law. It's law that you can control and you can suppress the people. That's what it is. I mean, God's law was plenty good for all of us. It starts with love. It starts with love of mankind. It starts with fellowship. It starts with local communities. And law is local, not national in America. We don't manage from the top down. We manage from the bottom up. Well, 1871 started to change that. And by 1963, it was completely changed in our country. And that's why there's the website, What the Fuck Happened in 1971. And that's
is that a thing? I didn't know that that's a thing.
Oh, it's a big thing.
Oh, I gotta get that. Okay, I'm going there now.
That website it's WTF happened in 1971.
Oh, this is kind of fun.
And what happened was Michigan was the last state to acquiesce and basically give all power to our federal government. We gave all power to our federal government. But you know what? I mean, it's okay. There is remedy. There you go. Look at what happened in 1971.
I love being in a zero censorship platform. People have to just get the F over it,
Me too. But this is something people should spend the time. There's lots of graphs here. It shows you everything going back in our history. And then what happened in 1970. Well, it's real simple. And I can kind of cut through the chase and give you a basis. But in 1933, Teddy Roosevelt, we realized in order for them to fully implement their program, they had to get us off of a standard of currency, which was based upon weights and measurements of gold. So we were backed by gold up until 1933 in America. And then we stayed backed by gold from 1933 to 1971. And believe it or not, the reason they stayed on the gold standard worldwide is because their goal was to literally steal all the gold in America, which is what I believe they've done. So they stayed on the gold standard, although it was illegal to own more than X amount of gold in 1933 in America. So everybody shipped their gold over to Europe, all the wealthy people. So what ultimately happened then in 1971 was Nixon said, you know what? We're going off the gold standard. We have no gold left. There was no gold left. They had to go off the gold standard. We're going to be backed by oil. We signed a deal with OPEC, and we're going to be backed by oil and the power of the United States military. And we've been a fiat currency ever since. So you can see what happens when you have a fiat currency. There's no controls. There's no budgets. It allows Washington, because they had already set up the tyranny in Washington, and now it allows them to set up what's called NGOs and other government agencies that are legal, but they're not constitutional, but they're legal in their system. And it allows them to steal trillions, not billions, not millions, trillions of dollars every year. And because in their democracy, we, the people, were kings and queens. In their democracy, they put us all into the trust when you signed your Social Security card. So from 1935 on, they put you into the trust. They made you a servant, and then they made Congress the king.
Look at this graph here, which is really interesting, going back to looking at what happened with the destruction of the family. and the feminist movement, which I am absolutely opposed to. Okay. And I really am, because, it really, they figured out that they weren't taxing half of the population, which is pretty much what everything they do is about, grabbing more money. Same thing with the proposals. The proposals are to strip us from our private property, our money, our property, and everything. It's all about stripping us of resources and taking them. It's always about taking resources. If they can impoverish the people are full-time slaves to them, and just to survive are going to have to. But look at this.
We're there. People were
Because
there.
we're there right now. It's like both spouses working 66%, husband only 21, and wife working only 7%. I want you to think about this. If women, and I know everybody's going to go, oh, you don't want to uphold the rights of women. I do. But this is one of those things, is a smart reality we're going to have to figure out.
By the way, Donna,
Go ahead.
the rights of women are protected in the Constitution, the original Constitution. The rights of everyone are protected.
I'm absolutely not debating that. What my point is an economic way. It's like we already had the rights. It's just like
correct.
It's just like our private property rights right now. And trying to talk about this ax my tax nonsense and writing. Why do you think they're going to continue to layer legislation on legislation? It's a deception. It's not what they say it is. And it's the same thing with the feminist movement. It was a deception. They were able to tax the other half that they couldn't tax of the population. And in doing so, they stole our time. When we do things, when we volunteer and we have time to volunteer just to take care of the planet, it's a non-taxable function. Think about this. If we stop treating everyone as, oh, I got to do it for money. The only thing that matters is how much money I've made and doing it for money. Well, guess what? You just had your time stolen, and they're going to tax you until everybody stops or until everybody actually pushes back. The whole economic thing is
I have a simple question. I am a lawful taxpayer, but I haven't filed an IRS tax return in years. And the IRS isn't knocking on my door. Why are they not knocking on my door? Because I don't earn income. I swap my labor for, those are the fruits of my labor. That's not income. They converted it to income. And I did pay income tax forever, but I legally opted out of their program. And I say this, and I don't recommend anybody do what I just said. Unless they learn the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. But I will tell you, that's the tyranny that we live under. And there's a reason that Donald Trump wrote, "Are we a republic?" ? There's a reason he is going after tariffs. He can't say what I can say, and I can say he's going after tariffs because there's only two lawful taxes in this country: direct and indirect. Indirect is duties, excise, and imports. Direct taxes are taxes they put on me and my income. By the way, Mohr versus the United States last year, the Supreme Court decision, Mohr versus the United States, said we've only had one direct tax in our history, the Civil War. We haven't had another direct tax, which means, and it's said in the decision, very few people owe the direct tax in America.
And what case was that?
It's when foreigners want to come to America for the privilege of
you mentioned a case. You mentioned
Mohr versus the United States Supreme Court decision. It was June of last year.
We've had some really good decisions that have come out, including the reversal of the
Supreme Court has flipped. By the way, I wanted to mention one other thing that I think is important to remember. When you read a Supreme Court decision, understand that they adjudicate many different laws. They adjudicate laws that are not always laws that affect all of we the people. Many times they're adjudicating laws that only affect corporations or certain very limited classes. And what we do is we think a decision affects everybody because they call all of us U.S. citizens. And we have to understand our states give us our rights, not our federal government. Our states do. That's where we get our rights from. And I get to use all 50 states. I don't just have to use Georgia, which is where I live. It's a powerful tool. Georgia has 31 constitutional rights, and they're actually built into the articles. They're not amendments to the articles like the U.S. Constitution. Those were just effectively There were many people in the Federalist, in the Anti-Federalist Papers that didn't want to put those rights in the U.S. Constitution, because all of your rights come from your state. And the federal government was only granted 19 powers.
Well, and
Or
think
God.
about this. The states were the size of countries when the
Correct.
when the United States was formed. And honestly, it's just too big. There's too much power there, and we need to constrain this. We need to bring this back in, because it absolutely affects people and people's lives on a daily basis.
You know what
And-
the
and
government is fearful of? They're
us.
fearful that you will learn
Yes.
that your rights came from your state, and we are a bottom-up government. We are self-governed.
Yes.
The Supreme Court has said it in many of these decisions. They tell us that we are self-governed.
Yes.
Judge
And-
Gorsuch says it in his book. The problem is, in order to be self-governed, you have to know the law.
Well,
You have
and
to
I
know
think
the
this goes back to President Trump. President Trump, I think he's hilarious. I absolutely think he's absolutely hilarious, because he doesn't get baited into doing what they want him to do, is say, okay, everybody sit down. This is what we're doing right now. It would be like the British soldiers standing up in a war and saying, we're going to line up in a war here and we're going to have a battle, right? And well, the patriots are standing behind the trees and shooting with squirrel guns, right? Who won? History kind of repeats. He's going to go out there and he's going to throw crazy stuff out there, but he's not going to tell the enemy what we're doing. And you know what? And there's some points in time we just got to trust God and God's plan, that we're working into a good situation. And I really hope that everybody found today a mixture of human reality that interacts with our government and what we do. You can't say you're not involved in politics. Every one of us is. If you're not involved in it, at the minimum, we're involved with the effects of what we allowed evil people to take from us.
Amen.
It's involved with you.
What's that?
There was a woman who ran for a township near me, and she said, I wasn't involved in politics until politics got involved with me.
Yeah, there you go.
He and her husband hardly marketed themselves, and they both made it on. They flipped the township.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, I think this is a cool thing to go through, this Maxims of Law, because
It is.
we can read it and we can then discuss it and attach it to like everyday life. Just like I really love these books, the Bible, the Biblical Principles, Biblical Blueprints series, and they're hard to find. I'm going to tell you that. It took me a while to get all of them. Most of them came from I've got almost all the volumes now, but they're also online. Let me see if I can pull this up a minute, because I can post. I can post this because there's an online site that has everything out there. I think it's Gary North. Gary North is the guy's last name that has them out there, but there are. Let me see if I can find it. Gary North, GaryNorth.com public, and this is actually where you can go in and find the PDFs of what he wrote, and it's a great resource. And I will publish both what the F happened in 1971. And I'm not afraid of the word. You guys all know me well enough. You probably know that that's one of my most appropriate words sometimes. We the people 2.us. I'll also post, what the fuck happened in 1971, and then the site from Gary North. It's a little slow. It's always a little slow when I've been on here. The reason why I bought the books is because the internet is something we take for granted.
Yep. It
may not be there tomorrow. If somebody decides to EMP us, I can tell you one of the reasons why I got involved with. It's not coming up. Hang on a minute. They're
To the point.
they're dinking with us right here. Check this out. Yeah, see, it's trying to load. See the little load bar there. For
This
some
is why
reason,
they
it
changed
doesn't want to come up, but I will post the link to my Telegram channel in X so that you can get that. But it, I really think this is a good direction to go in and to learn. Oh, here we go, in a soft, easy method. No, this isn't the right one. It's not GaryNorth.com. Let's see. Might be. Hang on a minute. You know, this is where I fail every time. It is actually, no, here it is. It is here. Doing two things at once. So here we go. Here's the one: money, welfare, family, divorce, education, economics, government, politics, and international relations. Some of these are there will be a, all right, this isn't what I'm looking for. Let's see if this is the problem. You
At
get
the
in
kitchen table.
Yeah, at the kitchen table. Real news for real people at the kitchen table. I'll have to look into this before I throw it out there. I know I've got a direct link it somewhere to the PDFs of the books, and I think that it's Gary North is the primary writer, but there's also other people. So Dr. Gary North is who you're looking for when you look for biblical blueprints, and it's by Dominion Press. Give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves, and I'll see if I can get this figured out, because I do think this is a great resource, and I will post the PDF version of this.
As Greg was talking about, all these things that they've done
No, this isn't.
throughout history to harm us in the legal realm, in the corporate realm, changing words slowly over time. I wanted to say, it's almost like they had a plan, an evil plan.
Oh,
And they did. But now we can see, as you start to get familiar with it a little bit, and it is overwhelming when you see that huge picture, and you think, how am I going to fight this? How are we? Well, we have a plan too. And it incorporates so many facets. That's why Q talks about having a plan, and people think, well, that's just a plan. You just wait for the plan to work it out. Well, the plan does include us. We have to do what we can do, education being part of it. And if nothing else, you share what you learn, and you sit back at home and you get a book or you get a website open and you start reading. You read your Constitution and your other constitutions, and you try to get familiar with these words like citizen. And by the way, I noticed that Mike prefers the word Michiganian, Donna, and I thought that was really
I know
fun.
it's like a stab to the heart every time he says it, because you know.
Well, he said a Michigander is a slave owner. That was a new one for me. I'm gonna have to find out where he got
I'll
that
have to
from,
look at that too.
because
But
I
that's one of those
hadn't even
things.
read that. But to get familiar with these words and what they mean, I mean, there's a reason I don't use that word. And there's a reason that I was so careful about the word citizen, and why we need that defined if we want to require that of everyone who wants to cast their ballot. What's the difference between casting a ballot and voting? Those things might not matter a whole lot here and there, but they do matter a lot in other places. And having that knowledge and changing how you speak even can help. People like Greg and Mike and others, when they speak in casual conversation in these places where I've been, it's like it's a lesson constantly for me. It's like, well, oh, what's he talking about? Oh, because they've learned to change the way they speak using more appropriate uses of the terminology, it affects the people in their circle of influence. If somebody doesn't know why they're using a word the way they're using it, they get to ask.
Yep.
Okay, so
And
go
ahead.
Are you done? I'm sorry.
I'm good
There's
now.
always a delay when we talk. We're not really trying to talk over each other. This is because this is remote, and there's always a delay. And we very much like each other, and that's the way it is. It's just nobody's trying to step on people. It just happens because we're live, and many miles apart. I'd like to read this, and this is from Honest Money, from this book within the series, which is worth your time. And you can go here and read it from GaryNorth.com. I'll post that too. You have to go in and get. You're going to have to get to it through a few clicks. It's not an easy site to navigate. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But I'll post this one specifically to this PDF. We begin by stating that the issue with respect to gold is an issue more centrally with respect to God. Is there an ultimate and absolute order? And does God's sovereign law establish an inescapable order with respect to every sphere, so that the transgression of that law brings social penalties and decay? Or is humanism true and the only value is man and his desires, his pleasures in consumption, display, and expression? That's Satanism right there. The monetary crisis reflects a cultural crisis. Those opposing welfare economies must of necessity have a sound monetary policy. But hang on a minute. But a sound monetary policy rests in the framework of absolute law, in the basic premise of the sovereign and absolute God, whose law order governs all reality. Without this faith, the conservatives' economics lack the consistency of this status. The monetary policies of socialism reflect, after all, a consistent faith in the ultimate and sovereignty of man and man's ability to create his own law, money, and the world at will. Here, as elsewhere, is the question is simply this: who is God? If the Lord be God, then follow him. But if Baal be God, then Baal must be followed. Not without significance, the U.S. coinage from the days of the Civil War bore the imprint, "In God we trust." Choose this day who you will serve. The rest of your life depends on it. The law, justice, direction, provision, protection, everything. And if people choose that worship of the world, they've got a lot of hurt coming, because there is no hope in the world. The hope only lasts in God. So with that
It's
said,
as if there's a plan.
it must be a plan. No coincidences. Who would have thought? So, well, let's do this. Let's say a prayer. Anybody? You guys want to say a prayer? You want to say a prayer? Either of you? You want me to do it?
You're good. You're so good at it. So we like following you.
You know what it is? It's a ramble. I get in and I talk to God.
And you ramble in a positive direction. So take us there.
All right, dear Heavenly Father, here's the ramble of the day, because I talk to you just like I would anybody else, with just love and honor. And we're so grateful for all the wonderful people who joined us today and who will join us in the future. It's really amazing to see how many people watch things as they get time. We understand everybody is busy right now. Tremendous tax on our time, and your people are really hurting right now. I ask that you would reach down to each and every person that's out there and walk with them. Teach them how to walk with you. If they don't know how to walk with you, give them that little nudge that they perhaps need to move closer to you, and give up all of ourselves, our egos, our plans, and realistically become your presence in this world. We are the body of Christ. And you are the light of the world. If we don't act like it, we're not serving you, and we know it. Please help us to keep our focus on you, not on what we touch or see, but on those invisible things that you have created. You've even created the invisible. You created all of it. And we lay everything that you've given us here on this earth at your feet. I don't know how we do it, because it's always been yours and it always will be yours, but that is the way it is. But thank you so much for guiding us, directing us, bringing us to other things to think about: sources, the maxims of law, the biblical blueprints, the things that all the people who are working on notices are doing, and the incredible time that they and all of us have invested in this, in trying to bring this nation back to a rule of yours, a godly rule. We invite you into our days. We invite you into our hearts. We invite you into our families. We invite you into our schools, our townships, our counties. We invite you into our states, our nation, our countries, our continents, in the entire world. We ask you to be the supreme over it all in our hearts. You already are, but its problem is us. We have forgotten our place in our order, which is under you in all things: commerce, law, elections, families, schools. We forgot. And now it's time for us to return from the satanic captivity to live as your people in service to you, the world, as we learn together and prioritize the only thing that matters, which is our walk with you and the eternity that's set before us. Thank you for being patient with us. Man, I wouldn't want your job. It looks like it's one of those jobs that I wouldn't want it. I'm so glad that you're in charge and not us, because we would screw it up like we screw everything up. We're like a bunch of little kids fumbling around. And I'm just thankful that you love us, and you love us with a love that can't even be described, even when we fail, to the point of giving up your only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have eternal life, to live with you. That's huge. Unbelievable how much you love us, the flawed, the sinful, and the ones who don't have anything right. We only get things right when we walk with you. Thank you for blessing us with your presence today. We want to be a blessing to you. You've been a great friend to us, and we want to be your best friends today. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
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 So, guys, well, I think we've said it all.
We have.
For today.
Until next week, anyway. So until next week. So with that said, thank you guys for being here. Do you have any last words you want to say before we go to that time of the show right there? So
Follow your heart. Follow your heart. Live in fellowship, and learn the law at your own time. You know what? There's lots of us out there fighting for you, and we're going to continue to do it. And hopefully some of these cases we win, and we get remedy, and we can demonstrate to the people how to do it themselves. All you, Karen.
I don't know. I think
what she understands is I yield. So
I would just like to add, I have listened to yesterday's show, and I backed it up so I can, and paused it so I can go back and take some notes, because I was driving listening to it before. For those listening who haven't been listening, Donna's been having a lot of really good shows lately, and I haven't been doing summaries of them like I used to do. They're so full of information and inspiration and all kinds of stuff. And today we covered so many bases. We covered a lot of godly principles and a lot of problems, but also a lot of solutions. And that's always a really good balance to have. I saw a comment on another show, because I like to listen to a couple of the Badlands shows, not all of them. I don't like all of them. But somebody pointed out that they don't talk about God very much there. They do, but it's dotted here and there, and they tend to focus on what is happening in the narrative world or the political world, but they don't talk about the solutions from the godly perspective. And that's something that a lot of people are missing in their lives, and Donna's got it in every show. So keep watching.
That's really interesting that you say that. That's kind of a nice compliment, because I don't do it specifically. I have no plans when I come on here. It just everybody should be well aware of that by now, right? It's like you couldn't ramble like this if you tried. There's just, you couldn't do it with a plan. And we just get on and we talk, which is what we have to go back to, is how we live our lives needs to be lived out every single minute. It's not just go to church on Sunday. If that's the MO, we failed. Okay. It's like, every single minute. It's, God says, pray without ceasing. What does that even look like to be for us to be attached to God, to follow him and to walk on this earth? Talk to him, pray to him, not just ask him as Venn to God. Okay, I want this, God. Wouldn't that drive you nuts if one of your kids did that to you all day long? I want socks, and then watch them go nuts when they don't get what they want. That was totally unplanned, by the way. That was a God thing, and he just brought me right around to that. It's like, do we want to be like an insane person and just to say, God, you're a vending machine to every single, childish desire we want? Or do we actually ask him on behalf of others when we see them struggling to give them assistance and help them? I don't know. A lot of questions to ask here, guys, and we got a lot of unraveling to do, but you know what? We got eternity. We got all kinds of time.
Yes, we do.
That's right. So with that said, everybody, let's see if I get the right hand right. Oh, this hand. I got to remember left hand because everything's backwards here. Ding, 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 ding. My 2022 protest, which this is not going to die. You're talking to a freaking pit bull here, right? I don't let go once I bite onto things, unfortunately, to the bad guys. But at any rate, go to
ding, ding, ding.
Go to brandenburgforgovernor.com because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I'd like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. Wearing cowboy boots. We'll see who wears them better. It's me because I wear them every day. And then we talk and we fix things, and it'll be great.
I started that,
Yeah. You know what? I want to have a discussion with President Trump about this whole nuclear physics situation that I have stumbled upon, and find that this is one of the biggest ways that we can actually bring the deep state to its knees, and real quick. And so the solutions are there. We just have to be open to looking at them instead of sticking with our own biases and defending where we are. When something else comes up that's better, it's probably there because God dropped it in our lap. It has nothing to do with us. Not that we're smart, not that we're anything. It's that God goes, here, I'm going to give you a little treat. Ding. And all of a sudden, good things start happening. It has nothing to do with us. So at any rate, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. It's every choice. It's every decision. It's every word not to go down the crazy train path, and be the stability, the calm in the storm at all moments. We'll see you tomorrow. I will be on tomorrow with Robert Brown from John Birch Society for an hour. And then I got to get off because I've got work to do here. It's like I'm actually doing stuff, more stuff than you could possibly imagine. And I've got multiple meetings. I've got another meeting tomorrow with a group of people that I absolutely love to pieces and respect. And I know you're going to be there, Karen. So we will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
With maple twists.
With maple twists. You guys are all loved. And tomorrow it's going to be love knowing that maple twists from Karen are coming my way for this meeting. Have a great day.